God damn, Gary. Some serious gourmet. What flavor is this? That's right, it's the all-hell medium roast private blend. Check out the Geek Grind Coffee Nerdrotic page for our other options like the Decadent, Feathers of Liberty, vanilla-infused flavored coffee. Or if you're looking for something darker, try the Dark Roast FNT blend of the Fellowship. You know what? Just buy all three. GeekGrindCoffee.com. Use discount code Nerdrotic.
Nerdrotic.com.
Welcome, travelers, to the fringes of reality, where the strange and mysterious meet, and the thin veil between fact and fiction is torn. Welcome to the Forbidden Frontier.
Every time.
I like to give it a moment when it hits like our episode. Like I want that silence, and then.
Every time I see that intro, it's just
That's so good.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah, that's beautifully made.
Perry Chan.
Perry Chan.
And Mahler. That voice
yes.
is just
It
velvet.
is.
We'll say I wrote it.
I didn't know that.
You can say
actually.
you wrote it. No, did you write it really?
I did write it, yeah.
You did a
That's
really
quality.
It was, but
All
like
right.
Mahler
Okay.
brought it to life, you know?
True.
Perry Chan is my spirit Asian.
I think he's all of ours.
Luke,
all of
welcome
ours.
to the show.
Hi.
I it just said number 29, and I feel like it was people need to know. Luke Caverns
Bro.
is on the show. Luke, welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Was at Cosmic Summit. Gave a great talk. We talked about it here, about all the Maya temples and ruins that you've gone through. Very cool stuff, dude. If you haven't followed him, all of his stuff's in the description below.
Yeah. He's on TikTok, which I'm sorry, I don't look at but
I'm sorry.
Instagram. He's killing it on TikTok and Instagram. The YouTube is getting going. I think that's where you're going to be pushing a lot of stuff.
Yep.
And go subscribe to him there, please. And he gave top 3. Because Ben might be out there and want to offend Ben. And Randall gave like this. He gave the longest talk for sure. But
Well, that's
broke for lunch,
surprising.
I think.
Wow.
yeah.
Randall
and
talked for a long time, huh?
for a long time. I know the guy who did 10 hours on Atlantis talked for a long time. But Luke
Yeah.
was like in and out. Had his beginning, middle, and end, and it was brilliant. I just watched it again. It's so good. It's so good, and new information, and that's what's the best part of this. When you and I talk, Luke, the best part of this field is like we're getting real new information. That's why it's ancient civilizations is far more exciting than all the other paranormal stuff because we got some tangibility here.
Yep.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show, Luke.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Yeah, it's an honor to be on. I've seen Nerdrotic, and somewhere along the way, I figured out that you guys were in San Antonio, and then came up and introduced myself. At Cosmic Summit. But yeah, thank you guys for having me on, and thank you for the nice words about my presentation at Cosmic. That was crazy, man. So I think we talked about this at dinner, but I was the very first person. I mean, I'm an ultra fan of all the guys that were at Cosmic Summit and were supposed to be there. And I was the very first person to buy a ticket. And little did I know that was like October 1st. And what was the event? Mid-June. And so between October 1st and mid-June, my pages would grow so much that I would end up speaking at Cosmic Summit, and
Awesome.
which was crazy. And then, you know, to go there and give a speech and to hear everybody, you know, compliment it, it really means a lot. And I have a bit of an imposter syndrome, but yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, you should not have that because you are definitely one of the, like, I was watching, you know, I love all those guys there, all the speakers, and it was yours that I was like, what is this is so interesting. There's like so much, it was blowing my mind the amount of new information that you were pulling up about all of these sites. And it's like I explained it later. I grew up in a time where it felt like everything was explored and everything had been discovered, and we're not really finding anything new. And then your talk was like, no, there's so much more we could be finding.
Oh,
We just haven't gotten there yet. So it was blowing my mind. I was like, dude, we got to talk about this more.
Yeah, well, the reason behind that is I think there's just a really severe misunderstanding of how expansive the ancient world was, and also a really large over expectation of how far advanced our technology is. Like when people LiDAR scan, they're not LiDAR scanning, you know, 93 miles of jungle by 50 miles of jungle. You know, that would be in the Petén in northern Guatemala. They're doing a 6 mile by 6 mile area, and it cost them 50 grand USD. And that's Guatemala or Mexico trying to do that. And they don't have that kind of money to do that for the whole jungle. So people just grossly overestimate what we're capable of and what has been done. And then at the same time, people just also don't know. You know what I mean? The ancient Americas, Central and South America, aren't popular like the old world is. You know, ancient Egypt and Greece and Rome and Turkey is getting up there now, and the twin rivers like the Euphrates and the Tigris River, the Babylonian, Syrian cultures. You know, that's what the whole world knows because people have been studying that for over 1,000 years now. You know, and so we're still in the infancy of studying the ancient Americas. You know, I mean, we're just right at the beginning of it. And so I think people sort of need to remember that we haven't explored everything. And so that was the point of my talk, you know.
And I think it's really important. There was a lot of academics there. That's what was really cool about that conference was it was balanced and the academics were pretty open-minded. And we don't hear from enough academics that like, we really don't know much. You know, we're still learning. Like a simple act of humility like that would go a long way instead of the science being settled, because apparently most of it is, except when it's not, and you go and LiDAR just a very small amount of the jungle. And yeah, I love that you brought that up because everybody's like, LiDAR, that's going to solve everything. You're like, wait a minute. It's actually really expensive right now. So that's not going to solve everything.
Really,
how were they able to do that one image that you showed where there was like 60,000 structures?
So what people don't realize is I don't mean to like jump straight into conspiracy, but you know how when people you know that
the
people
forbidden frontier.
You're in the right place.
You know how people they point out like, oh, these NASA photos, that's art. That's not an actual photo. It's actually a piece of art, or it's like a painting, or it's like digital art. That's what those LiDAR scans are. The ones that look really good and everybody goes, oh my gosh. I mean, that's not real. What that is it's a very rough LiDAR scan. That's the bottom layer. And there's multiple layers of LiDAR scans. So you have the foliage all the way down to the jungle floor and a little bit underneath your sedimentary layers and everything. And so it takes a LiDAR technician to actually go through all of that data and make an image that actually looks halfway decent. And then they just go in and they create 3D models on top of it to show you what it probably looks like underneath. And that's where you get this like, whoa, look at those pyramids. Look how you can see the edges. It wouldn't be like that if you walked out there. You may not even, I mean, the jungle's so dense. Like in January, I was in Chiapas, Mexico, and you kind of had to adjust your eyes if you were in the jungle. And because I was with a guy named Dr. Ed Barnhart, and he would be like, look at that pyramid. And then you go, And then, you look to your right and left, and then you go, oh, that's a pyramid. It's just covered up by the jungle. Not everything is like that, but there are no perfect angles. Those have to be kind of excavated and then repositioned and kind of put back together to make it look nice, because the jungle foliage and trees grow in between these ancient blocks and spread them all out and mess them all up. Not all the time is it like that. It just sort of depends.
I imagine a lot of the foliage over the however long it just builds up on top of it too. So you're not just having the vines and roots breaking it all up. You also have sediment on top of that.
Yeah.
Over decades and hundreds of years and thousands of years, just covering it up.
Yeah. Well, I think my favorite part of my presentation was when I talk about when I was in the jungle outside of Palenque, and I saw this hole in the ground, and it ended up being a chamber, and I jumped down inside of it. And and I was looking at the walls, and it was kind of trapezoidal. So you had an arched, like a vaulted ceiling with perfectly flat walls, a perfectly flat limestone. I mean, it was all limestone and just perfect straight angles. I'm thinking, this is really cool. So this is kind of some subterranean chamber. And so I took videos of everything. And then I came back and started studying it more, studying Maya architecture more in one of these books I have behind me. And I realized that the chamber I had jumped down into was a first floor. So it was actually lifted up off the ground, and there was another foundation underneath it. And the sediment, through sediment disposition, it had piled up over the top of this temple. And now I was standing inside of it, but now it was underground. And it blew my mind.
And how long does that take, like sediment, to go over an entire building?
So the height of Palenque was around 700 AD. But the height where that was constructed, or where the temples and buildings and the great palace of Palenque, where that is constructed, that was during its height at 700 AD. We were in the more ancient ruins. So you're looking at several hundred years older than that. That's out in the jungle, that's not excavated. So you're pushing like 2,000 years. Yeah. But some of them weren't even covered up. It really kind of depends, because a lot of storms push through there, and that can kind of speed up sediment disposition and everything. And so it's kind of just random. It's really like a case by case building basis, where you have to look and say, well, what happened to this building to basically sink it, and why is this building still above ground? And a lot of it just depends on where it was built on the mountain, at least in that particular city.
So you were talking about the Yucatan Peninsula early on. So why don't you tell the chat what Yucatan means?
Okay, so yeah. So I started that, and I was basically saying, I was detailing how quickly false ideas can spread, and misconceptions about ancient civilizations, and how when it starts off on the wrong foot, everything behind that can be wrong. Because in archaeology, you're not necessarily taught. There's so much that's happened, and it's an okay system, right? Like, not everybody in archaeology is trying to hide some grand conspiracy. I mean, they're just trying to follow. Most people are trying to follow a scientific method, and so it's building blocks. Like, every new archaeologist doesn't come in and start from the beginning. You start where the people before you ended, right? So, but the thing is, sometimes there are people like in Egypt who kind of control this paradigm of what we believe about Egypt. And so you come in, and everything that you learn, if it's wrong, you just kind of continue with it being wrong, right? So I kind of it's like a little bit, but I started it off, and I showed a picture of the Yucatan Peninsula, and it was I think it was titled Yucatan Peninsula, and I asked the crowd, I said, can anybody tell me what this geographical area is? And this guy raises his hand, and I said you, and he goes, what do you say, Yucatan Peninsula or something like that? And I was like, yeah, well, I'm glad you got that, because it's on the screen. And I was like, but can you tell me what it means? And so nobody had any idea. Mm-hmm. But really what it means is, so when the Spanish first landed in the Maya world, they landed on Cozumel. And this is where the story comes from. They landed on Cozumel, and they don't know if it was Maya or if it was Aztec people that were there. The Aztecs, so you've got the Yucatan Peninsula, right? And the more jungle green area is where the Maya lived. Over towards the Mexican Valley is where you have the Aztecs. But the Aztecs were in the middle of conquering all of the Maya world at the time of the arrival of the Spaniards. They were just eviscerating every culture. That's a whole rabbit hole to go down. And so they think that they had taken over Tulum, if you guys have ever heard of that, Tulum, and then they were also on Cozumel. And so the Spaniards show up and they meet with these Mesoamerican Aztec or Maya people, and they say, well, where are we? Where are we? What is this place called? What is this place called? And the Maya people, they're like Yucatan. And they're saying, I have no idea what you're saying. I can't understand your language. And then the Spaniards look at each other and go, this is the Yucatan, and so they turn around and go back to their boat and they go, this is the Yucatan. And the Maya were just saying, I can't even understand what you're saying. And then so look at what now we call it the Yucatan, just from that one conversation. And so it was just a funny little bit as to how easily, one thing that's wrong can just stick forever. It's kind of like how we call Indians, but because the Spanish were
looking for India. I actually looked it up and I found out that Yucatan actually directly translates to lost Spaniards. That's I just made that up right now.
I was saying, yeah.
On my own website, I made it yesterday. No,
Adam Wiki.
Adam Wiki. Yeah. So, but yeah, that was just a little bit explaining how easily things can start off on the wrong foot, and
there's a whole peninsula called the "I don't understand you" peninsula. Basically.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, it's like Göbekli Tepe. That name to English speaking people were like, wow, that sounds really cool. But what does it just mean? Hill with a belly?
Potbelly Hill.
Potbelly Hill.
Or Pregnant Hill, I think, is another term. The way
but
they
it's
use
got like umlaut or whatever, and like it looks.
Yeah, it looks
really
cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or we'll probably get into this later, but I have been studying El Dorado lately. Lost City of El Dorado in South America. It's just really fascinating to me. And because I've been spending so much time studying Middle America, I was like, okay, I need to clean my palate and read about South America. And El Dorado has a bunch of different meanings, but one of the translations is just the strength. That's what it means. And so I was thinking, like, to English speaking people, El Dorado sounds just so captivating. That's such a beautiful name. But to people who speak Spanish, they're like, it's an odd name to name something. It's like the strength, and then it has a bunch of other meanings that it could be as well. But
I thought that was in Central America. the city of gold.
Yeah, no. Central America doesn't have its. This is something I want to talk to Dr. Ed Barnhart about and see if there's anything that's similar to this. But what's funny is Central America probably has. Man, I mean, if you're talking about cities that are the size of, let's just say, Chichen Itza or Palenque, if you guys are familiar with those Maya cities, I would estimate more than a dozen cities that size have not been found. I mean, you're talking about massive cities that you could easily call it. That's El Dorado, right? It could be 24. I mean, it could be like 25 cities that are that size that haven't been found. That's how big the jungles are. But it doesn't have its own legend of a lost city. There are rumors, like there's a city called Ciudad Blanca, the city of the monkey god. If you guys have heard that book, The Lost City of the Monkey God, they're still trying to find that city. They're trying to find a city called White Dog. There's a few in there that people want to know where they are. But it doesn't have its own El Dorado, like the big fabled city. That is South America. That comes out of Colombia. And it's something along the lines of like Chichban or something like that. That culture, that's where the rumor came from. So the Spaniards are going through Colombia and they're looking for gold. And this Chichban culture is like, oh, no, don't plunder us. There's a really, really wealthy city full of all the gold that you want. it's down that way, down
It's
these
further
dangerous
down the river.
rivers. Yeah, it's further down the river. But be careful because there's no food and there's no potable water down there. But go ahead and go down there. And so, but a lot of people think that it's a myth. I think it's probably real. There's a lot of evidence that, I mean, there were tons of cultures in South America, in the Western Amazon, that were master goldsmiths. And we only know just a fraction of everything that they were goldsmithing because like when the Spanish conquered the Inca world or the Inca Empire, they had a gold that was comparable to ancient Nubia or ancient Egypt, and it was all melted down and sent back in gold ingots to the Spanish. But what we do have are so the Inca, they're not really ancient. I mean, they were contemporary with the Spanish when the Spanish arrived. But what we are finding are pre-Incan ancient Peruvian civilizations with their own gold. So like the Tiwanaku culture, if you guys are familiar with that, like Pumapunku, ancient Bolivian cultures, and then the Chavan culture and the Moche culture. I'm diving into these. And so now in archaeology, we kind of, it's I don't know, it's like the informal name, but those are like the civilizations of El Dorado, because one of those civilizations, in my opinion, is El Dorado. And I think it's probably, if you guys are familiar with Tiwanaku, if you've ever read Graham Hancock, like he talks about it. And I think Ben from Uncharted X talks about it. And whether or not that site was built during or just before the time of the Younger Dryas, it was definitely populated from 1000 BC until just before the time of the Inca. And there's evidence that the structures there were gold plated. Like they found steel nails in the andesite blocks, and the steel nails have, and they can't figure out how they were able to get these steel nails in the andesite blocks. And there are bits of gold that are attached to the nails. And so there's
from 1000 BC.
No, that's not 1000 BC.
Okay.
That's between 200 BC and 200 AD, I believe. And so what's interesting is they left behind a lot of hieroglyphics at Tiwanaku, but there's no writing that we know of or anything that we have identified that even tells us what their name was. Like we just call them the Tiwanaku culture. Yeah. So that's not the gate of the sun. That might be the gate of the moon. And then that's one of the Tiwanaku giants that's in there. And so if you go back up, so these are the bottom walls of the city. But if you'll show one of the gates, if you'll go back up and show the gate,
I can. Give me a minute.
Okay.
What the hell?
But there's
the gate of the sun. What the?
The gate of the sun is the iconic one.
Yes,
that's the one. That's the one that has all the intricate hieroglyphs that are on it with the main idol in the middle.
These cultures are, when the Inca told the Spaniards about this El Dorado possible, they were already long gone ruins by that time.
Yeah.
So these were, it could have been just like them saying, this is a culture that we know of through our culture and kind of disseminated through us telling stories. There is a town, there's a city of strength over there that you're looking for, but it was long since had been covered over as well.
There we go. Gate of the Sun. This is one of the coolest things. So these andesite stone blocks, I don't remember the exact weight of this, but it's like enormous. And there are a bunch of megalithic pieces of stone architecture that are just scattered and destroyed all around Tiwanaku. And so there's evidence that this structure may have been gold plated, sort of like El Dorado would have been. But they assumed that all the gold that was here at Tiwanaku was taken by the Inca, and whatever else could be dug up was then taken by the Spanish as well. And so what I'm doing a deep dive on this, and I don't know if, when I'll kind of come to a determination as to what I believe, but I think that there were probably multiple El Dorados, because when Percy Fawcett, so from 1906 to 1925, he was traveling around the Amazon, and he was asking people in the Amazon about, a big gold city. So even those walls that you just showed All these walls are thought by some archaeologists to have been gold plated due to just fragments of gold that have been found in nail holes. So I think maybe they were nailing through the gold and it was getting lodged in the andesite blocks. There's even a block here that's used as a foundational block that weighs 163 tons, something along those lines.
That's amazing.
And yeah, I mean, and there's no evidence as to how they move that. And that's one single block. So it's amazing. And so what I am coming to the realization of, or what I'm thinking, is I think that there probably wasn't just one El Dorado. There were probably multiple. And I think there are plenty that haven't been found that probably were deeper into the jungle of the Amazon as well. Because so the Spanish show up in the 1500s, and these cultures that are around, so all the way up in Colombia, they're telling them about way further south. I might be wrong by saying 500 miles, but 500 kilometers south is this city El Dorado. And so up in Colombia, I think they were telling the truth, in my opinion, because it's not just that one culture that said, "Oh yeah, there's a rich city with lots of gold in this area of the Western Amazon." Tons of other cultures said that. And they even told Percy Fawcett that 350, 400 years later when he came back. And he was a British explorer, and he was exploring the Amazon. So he started in Brazil, came all the way down the Amazon River, all the way into Bolivia. And across the whole way, there were cultures there who probably had stories that were being told over, hundreds of years about these grand cities of gold that their great grandfather had seen. So yeah, there's a lot of South American cultures corroborating the idea or the story of El Dorado. So there's so many rabbit holes we could go down there, but I definitely think it was real. But I think probably it was multiple massive empires that are getting confused into just being one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Do you think it's possible that that city could still be untouched somewhere in the jungle? Like it wasn't taken over by Inca or Spaniards couldn't find it?
A city that wasn't taken over by the Inca, yes. A city that wasn't ever taken over at all, probably not. I mean, probably somebody ended another civilization. This is what I think personally. I think there's a multitude of things that could happen to end a civilization, including it being conquered or some kind of natural disaster that we still don't know what natural disaster ended the Maya, right? Like you have the most widely expansive, widely expansive, most intelligent, scientifically, astronomically, architecturally, medicinally advanced civilization that ever existed in the Americas. And they start collapsing out of nowhere. Like what caused that? We don't really know. But what I think, there are definitely civilizations and massive cities in the Amazon and in Central America that nobody has ever seen with their own eyes. So what's interesting is, so when Percy Fawcett on his final expedition in May of 1925, he's at Dead Horse Camp, and he's in this place called the Mato Grosso region of Bolivia. This is very swampy, very hostile territory that he was told by other natives there are not friendly tribes that are there. There are cannibalistic tribes. There are evil tribes there that raid and pillage through other tribes, kind of making them sound similar to the Aztec. Well, Percy Fawcett, he's been doing this for 20 years. He's not going to stop at that. So he's at a place called Dead Horse Camp because his horse died. And and he sends so they're chopping these machete trails for the last 20 years, like keeping them chopped and everything. And he has these runners that are going back and forth on horses all the way through his trails. And so he writes one last letter to his wife, Nina Fawcett. And he basically says that he knows he's close. He's at one of the locations that he predicted that his lost city of Z would be at. And he told her, you needn't have fear of any failure. And so he writes her a message back, or he sends that letter back. And what he said before he went on this final expedition was that if he found what he was looking for, he may not leave, but he's going to send his pocket watch back. And if that pocket watch gets back to her, she will know and there'll be a provision made for her to be able to return to him, because he had grown sick of England. I'm kind of going down the rabbit hole, but he had grown sick of these aristocratic people in England who looked down on the indigenous people in the Americas.
Am I correct that he took his son with him?
He took his son Jack. He took his son Jack and Jack's best friend Raleigh. It was just 3 of them. Plus, I'm assuming that they had like local Amazonian people traveling with them to carry all their stuff. But he wanted a smaller expedition because it's easier to go unnoticed. You're not, it's just a lot less complicated when there's only a couple people or a few people there. So I would guess less than 10, but there's only 3 that we know of. But I would guess less than 10. So he writes this last letter and basically told her that if he finds what he's looking for, he might not come back. But if the pocket watch gets sent back to her in the mail, then she will know, or if it comes back to her, she will know that he found what he was looking for, and there will be provisions for her to be able to go be with him, because he did not want to ever go back to England. He dreaded being in the UK. He hated all these aristocratic people. He liked the humble Amazonians, and he was just obsessed with the jungle. Like, he had like very restless blood. Like, he was longing for something greater than this evil world that he was in, right? So he goes down into the Mato Grosso region and is never seen again. And so there were indigenous tribes that he had made contact with over the last 20 years that followed him for 5 days. They saw his smoke trails in the evenings up in the sky. And on the 6th day, they never saw his campfire again. And so Nina Fawcett takes the youngest son, Brian Fawcett. They start traveling down to Brazil. And the only way that they can make money, because they're dirt broke poor after Percy and Jack never came back. And the only way that they can make money is Brian starts writing these fantasy books about his dad. So The Adventures of Percy Fawcett. And he starts selling the books like in the markets in Brazil and everything. And they're trying to scrape together a little bit of change. And funny story, The Adventures of Percy Fawcett became the hero in Secrets of the Inca. Have y'all seen that old movie? I forget who plays that. Secrets of the Inca. It's like a 1956 movie. And then that character, I think it's Charles Heston. And then that character is directly who Indiana Jones is based off of. So Indiana Jones is directly inspired by Percy.
He's dressed exactly like Indiana Jones.
And so that was just an iconic look. Like, people think that's Indiana Jones look, but that was just the iconic look of explorers and archaeologists. That's just what they wore, And so while they're out there in the market,
Harry Steele is the name, by the way.
Harry Steele. Okay, yeah, that's a good name too.
That's good.
And so while they're out there in the markets and they're peddling these fantasy adventures of Percy Fawcett books, a Brazilian man comes up to Nina Fawcett and says, there was a white man living with the indigenous people in the Amazon, and I think this belongs to you. And that guy handed her the pocket watch. And this was
no way.
This was the 1930s, so maybe 10 plus years later, hands her the pocket watch. And she went to her grave believing that he and Jack and their friend never died, that they found what they were looking for and they never came back. And so anyways, 90.
That's great.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's the movie.
Yeah, Secrets of the Inca. That's a good, and you can see that's literally Indiana Jones. He's got the jacket, he's got the pants, got the boots, and he has the hat. Harrison Ford pulls it off better, of course. But yeah, I mean that's literally I think that little artifact thing he was looking at was a model of something at Machu Picchu. It's something Peruvian. Well, obviously Secrets of the Inca. I'm stupid for saying that. So anyways, 97 years later, a LiDAR scan going over the Mato Grosso region of the Amazonian jungle in Bolivia scans over ruins of pyramids, giant aqueducts and roads, and lifted roads and canals going off for miles in all directions in the exact spot that Percy Fawcett told his wife that he was going. And it was the exact spot that he told the Explorers Club or something like that, like the Royal, the Royal Society of Exploration in England. He told him that's exactly where he thought it would be. That's exactly where the natives said it would be. That's exactly where it went missing. And that's exactly where it was found on LiDAR. But nobody has ever seen it with their own eyes because the jungle is so difficult to get through. And, Bolivia, I don't know a whole lot about Bolivia economically, but I don't really know that they've got the money to be able to pay a group of 20 people to walk out there on foot and give them all their health insurance and all that crap if something goes bad. So they know it's there. They know there's a giant step pyramid there. They know there's a giant city there, and nobody has ever seen it with their own eyes. And then now that's not even the first one. There's several others that they've detected on LiDAR, but nobody will walk out to them because, you know, I mean, one bite to your leg from a fer-de-lance and you won't have a leg if you get adequate.
From a what?
From a fer-de-lance, like it's the most venomous snake in the Americas, or the most dangerous one. The coral snake is more venomous, but the coral snake is much less likely to bite you. The fer-de-lance will bite you multiple times, and it's almost as venomous as the coral snake. So if you get adequate medical treatment, you might lose your leg. If you don't, you die. So, you know, yeah, it's amazing that Percy Fawcett went there so many times over the course of 20 years and never got bit.
And lived that long.
I know.
Yeah, what a stud.
So, yeah. So to answer your question in like the most long-winded way possible. Yeah. So these guys, they're 3 times, I could be totally BSing, but I think my numbers are right. I think they're about 3 times as venomous as a rattlesnake. And they don't give you any warning like a rattlesnake does. And they're brown. Like, why couldn't they be like neon green or neon orange? You know what I mean?
Like, look at that. You wouldn't see that coming at all. You'd step right on that.
No, you would not see that. And you know, that's in Costa Rica. Costa Rica has the most dense population of fer-de-lance snakes, and by far it's like the number one cause of death in the wilderness in Costa Rica. I mean, these guys bite people all the time. And I go on TikTok and I'll type in fer-de-lance, and there are people walking through the forest without, you know, I mean, you need snake boots up to your knees if you're out there. If you're walking around out there in tennis shoes, I don't know. I just think that's crazy. I don't see how people do that. Like native Amazonian people, and like when I'm in Central America and I meet Maya people, they're walking around in little work boots that go up past their ankle bone, and that's it. And I'm like, dude, one fer-de-lance bite and you won't have that leg anymore, you know, and the kind of health care that you guys have out here. Yeah, exactly right. What's amazing though, going off on a completely other area, is I'm talking to a guy right now who owns an expedition company. His name's Anders Anderson, and he owns an expedition company in Guyana. That's in the eastern Amazon.
Sounds very Swedish. Is he Swedish?
Anderson.
That's like the most Swedish name. I live in Sweden. That's a Swedish name.
Anders Anderson.
Yeah, he's from Denmark.
Close. Close.
Yeah. So, super nice guy. I don't know how he ended up in Guyana, but that's the eastern Amazon. And he was talking to me about there are indigenous people that live out there right now that get bit by fer-de-lance all the time, and then they just go home and sleep it off. And that's like, I've never seen this in a scientific study before, but it reminds me, I just recently saw that there are people in Peru, like the descendants of Inca people, who they think that maybe Inca people were more exposed to rabies growing up. And so they developed, like, over the course of, you know, thousands of years, these ancient Peruvian people were more exposed to rabies. And there are some Peruvian people who can get bit by an animal with rabies, have no treatment, and live. So it's kind of similar. Like the people in Guyana, so many of them have died to fer-de-lance bites that they're now starting to become immune to the fer-de-lance. So that's kind of interesting.
Wow, they're building up an immunity. That's so cool.
Yeah, to like the most
through death somehow
on this side of the planet.
What? Yeah. How does that work?
No, I have no idea.
Crazy though. Wow.
But yeah. So
world.
So there's very physical reasons why we can't go to these places, or why we haven't gone there.
And that's why the City of Gold has not been discovered.
It's still there.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that's a reason we can't go. I would just say
why we haven't.
I would just say it's a good reason not to go. But like, it's not gonna. When I finally, like, when my YouTube and everything pops off and I've got the income, I'm going. You know, I mean, there's. It's interesting. The where I'm trying to put myself is I don't want to be a guy. I don't want to be an anthropologist, archaeologist that's tied down to a university, and I've got to appeal to the wants and needs of these board members who I'm just begging for them to give me a grant. And then everything I do is heavily monitored by them. What I want to do,
strings attached, lots of strings.
Yeah, exactly. And then they give you what, like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. They give you very, very minimal compensation for what you do. So what I'm trying to do is something that hasn't been done before. And I'm going to try to build up my own research money and go on my own expeditions. And I'll just, what I'll do is just document it and take the credit for it, of course. But I'll turn over all of my findings. Like, I'm not going to steal anything. I'm not going to vandalize anything, of course. I'm not going to be like, you know, a Tomb Raider or anything, but I'm going to turn over everything that I find back to the institutions that would do best with this information. But I just want to be somebody who, I don't know, funds their own archaeological, not really archaeological, but more like exploration, research missions, you know, and I want to fund myself and not be tied down to the agenda of a university, you know?
Yeah, man.
It's a perfect time for that.
It is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're in another age of exploration right now. Like, things are, and that's why that gets me so excited, because people can fund their own stuff now. You know, you don't need these big monolithic institutions to give you the okay on anything. And I mean, all the monoliths, they're all dying anyways. You know what I mean? There's really not any big institutions that are doing great right now. Like, individual people like all of us, we're the ones that are doing well right now, you know?
Well, and they could be doing well, but they're stifling themselves because they're in this old mindset.
Yeah.
Like you were just saying, like, you have all these strings attached, you have to get these grants, you are constantly monitored by them, and you can go out there and do it on your own and research by yourself and find out the information and then give it out to the public, not through all these channels, but on your own. And we're seeing that in so many other places,
like across the board with every institution. And you're seeing these institutions trying to grasp what that Joe Rogan just had a clip on this. So these institutions having to grasp what power they're eventually going to lose. There's no way they can unmake the soup of the internet and the way we're connecting. There's just no way.
Well, the type of consumption that people are doing are changing, where it was mindless and oftentimes still good. Like the old movies of old, right? Back when they actually cared about the content. Now people are realizing that it's all shallow and hollow, and they're seeking out people like you this guy is going to go out and actually care about what he's looking for. He's going to actually and I can help fund him myself. Like, oh, this is amazing. I'd rather give my money to this guy than to this major corporation that doesn't give a shit about me. I'm just a number.
And it's going to be more difficult to do because you don't have the infrastructure. But we've seen that you can still do it. Like, people. Well,
Percy
how do you think
did
that
it with
people,
a small team?
Exactly. Well, small team, you can do it. It's possible. It's going to be difficult, but it is possible.
Luke is in a sphere that's massive, right? It still, believe it or not, hasn't totally found its way on YouTube. It did back in the day, but it was always like lectures. But like Luke's coming at it with, I'm going to make videos. I'm going to make live streams, like, as a YouTuber. And
I would love to watch a video of you jumping into that freaking
hell yeah.
Ceiling through the ceiling. Like, where's that video? That'll have views.
Yeah, I know. When I went, it was just, it wasn't just me, but there wasn't like somebody there that I could hand the camera to and depend on them to be able to film it the right way. So, and I had to kind of make a whole lot of videos to build up a little bit of income to be able to get somebody to do that. And so now I've got before Cosmic Summit 24, which everybody should go to, by the way. So before Cosmic Summit 24, I'm planning on going to Guatemala. I'm gonna go to Guatemala, to Tikal and the Northern Petén, and then I'm going to go to the Yucatan twice. And one of them, I'm actually doing an excursion where people can join me. I think there might be a link in this video, but if any of you guys join me in the Yucatan and look at some like really giant, like the best Maya sites of the late classic to the early post-classic era, we're going to be visiting all of that, doing a little bit of jungle exploration, looking at some ruins that don't have a name yet. So that should be pretty cool. So, but the week before that, I'm going to the Yucatan in a different area for my own research trip. And I plan on documenting all of this. And then right before Cosmic 24, I'm going to Belize to kind of lay the groundwork for a big expedition that I want to do at the end of the year. Oh yeah, so this is it right here. So I'm leading this with NEXT. This is through his company, Adept Expeditions. You guys can join us. So we're going to Chichen Itza, Uxmal, Skitchmook, Ekbalam, Labna, and a set of unknown ruins. And then there's going to be a couple little surprises in there as well for when people come. So, but yeah, and then right before Cosmic Summit 24, I'm going to go to Belize and lay the groundwork for an expedition that I'm planning. If you guys want to get into some Google Earth stuff real quick.
Yeah.
Always.
You don't have to say that again.
Me with a good time.
You see his eyes light up.
Yeah, so I feel
Google
I'm
Earth.
sorry for anybody who's just listening through audio, but for you guys that are watching, this is gonna be pretty cool. Okay, so
We'll talk them through it.
So do I click present?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I click present, screen
Share
share.
screen. Yeah.
Share screen.
And
All
then
right.
He has some options. And
All right, so let's do my
Google Earth.
email. Aha, so are we on here now?
Yes.
All right, so we can all see. Let me
Email.
I've got the wait, are you looking at my emails?
Yeah.
Ah, crap. Hold on.
That was the email I sent you.
We're gonna go ahead and put that back down.
Yeah.
Hey,
give me
Garrett,
one
show
second.
it. I don't know.
While you're doing that, I just want to say, Luke, I watch a lot of documentaries and things for the show and for myself. I just love this stuff, and oftentimes I have it on the background. I'm doing something. I'm talking to people. I'm scrolling Twitter while I'm listening to stuff and taking in the knowledge. And Gary sent me your Cosmic Summit, and I started it. And I was doing the same thing, I was organizing something, and I very quickly found myself just sitting there watching, because just like Garrett said, there's something very exciting about discovering the new, and I really like how you are very, I guess relaxed about it, and also excited. There's a very, it's very infectious. Your enthusiasm for what you're doing, and I'm really excited to see what you do in the future.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that means a lot that you say that. It's I try to be as authentic and as little like a charlatan as I can, and the fact that it's come through is I don't know that people are
It shows.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that people enjoy what I enjoy is really, really flattering and kind of hard to believe. Okay, so I'll give you guys a little overview of the mysteries of Central and South America real quick. I need to make a Google Earth video because I think some people don't quite realize, like, I can show you on a map where the lost cities are. It's just a matter of, like, it's a needle in a haystack,
Yeah, getting there.
All right, so we're looking at the ancient Americas, right? So all the most interesting stuff is right here in southern Mexico to Guatemala, Belize, Honduras. In here is really interesting. This is kind of a blank spot. So there were civilizations that existed in here that were goldsmiths, but they don't have giant megalithic architecture that's been found, and we don't even know what they were called. They were just killed off by disease as a result of the Spanish coming into South America and the Bahamas into the Yucatan. And we don't know one single thing about them. So
can we pause for a second there on
Yes.
that spot? Because
Right here?
I've done like Paraguay, like where that thin strip of land is. And you really think about the stuff from Graham and Randall talking about the Younger Dryas and how the 400 feet of ocean, it's raised.
The same thing.
Yep.
Right. So they don't know much about that area. What if it's just underwater? What if there was civilizations there? Because you'd think that's a pretty pinnacle spot, right? Between two massive land masses.
There'd be a lot of trade
going through there. You're following the coast if you're on the water, which, I mean, most cities tend to be on the water. What if we're looking in the wrong spot? What if it's 2 miles out, north or south?
Yeah, underwater.
You might have to back out and back in when the camera freezes.
Okay, like leave studio for a second.
Yeah.
I used to freeze, and then I switched to Firefox.
Firefox fixed it.
I used to use a Chrome base, Chrome
Interesting.
or Brave.
Okay,
I
well,
freeze all the time.
Well, I figured it'd just be easy to let everybody look at my very awkward facial expression, and we'll just keep going with.
It's
Google
not bad.
It's
It's not bad.
It's not good. Yeah, Adams was way worse.
Trust me.
And he had a million
Trust
of
me.
them. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so what we're looking at here is, I mean, we'll look at first off, look at the size of here. We'll get rid
Of
of
the
all
lazy Spaniard Peninsula.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
Or the
exactly.
lost
the
lost
You're
Spaniard.
messing up your own
Yeah,
wiki,
the
bro.
Lost
I
Spaniard,
know.
the Lost Spaniard. I don't know what you're saying, Peninsula.
They're more like
Right.
guidelines.
So
Yeah.
okay, so all right, so let's look at the northern Yucatan, right? So you've got some blank spots in here, but here's Merida, here's Cancun, and Cozumel. So Spaniards, they first arrive in the Bahamas and they kind of explore all this, and then they end up in Cozumel. This is where that story of where the name of the Yucatan comes from. So
I've been there.
So if we're just starting from the north and we're going down, a lot of this is found because this is kind of flat tropical jungle, right? Like it goes from being, I don't know if I'd say arid, but it's like hot tropics, and everything's mostly flat. So some things are easier to find up here rather than when you go to the Maya highlands. So this is all the highlands. This is the lowlands. And so you've got some blank spots in here. These are very swampy areas. I would say 100% likelihood of there being lost cities all throughout here. So this is the northern Yucatan, and then it kind of gets down into Belize. There's like a border here somewhere. So these are, I believe, these are the jungles of Campeche right here. Yeah. These are the jungles of Campeche. So in Yucatan, there's definitely going to be lost cities that are right here. Almost everything in here is discovered. I bet you there's lost cities that are in here. So you're looking at the Campeche jungles. So right here, there's going to be a site. Gosh, I can't remember the name of it. Balamku. So 37 miles inward, they just found another lost city right in here called Okoptun. And that one was led by a Scandinavian archaeologist named Ivan Sprajic. And I want to say that was just, they did like a random LiDAR survey and they found one. But look at this entire area. Massive.
Wow,
And
man.
here's Calakmul. That might not actually be the actual location. Sometimes these names just end up in a weird spot on Google Earth. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
But
So was that like
all of this-
4,000 square
that
miles?
is huge.
No, it's well, it might be. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, you're looking at, I mean, that's roughly, 150 square miles, more than that, but it's a huge area.
Oh, it's
And-
in kilometers. Okay.
Yeah, and this is they call this
I didn't
area
see
right here.
KM.
They call this area right here and this area, they call it the black hole because it's basically like impenetrable jungle. It's just so dense that if somebody is if a person is 10 feet in front of you, you can't see them anymore. It's just
Wow.
it's just that dense. So that's
And there's three of those snakes in between you.
Look how large
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Like that whole area right in the
Yeah.
middle.
So this is Campeche. So this is a transitional area because the Maya, they kind of start down here in this area, like even in Honduras. This is where Copan is right here. Copan's probably, I don't know, probably one of the most, I guess I would say, glorious Maya cities. And so they start down here in the highlands. And then as the Maya civilization collapses, they go north. They end up here in the Petén, and then they end up in Campeche. And then their civilization ends up here in the Yucatan. And then so you've got the northern Petén jungle, which is kind of just a continuation. It's just really a continuation of here. But this area is massive. And so that 60,000 structure, that 60,000
art.
structure, thing that I was talking about, it's actually right here. So it's in the edge of, or maybe it's this right here. So it's in the edge of the Petén.
Just on the edge of this.
Yeah. So this is
Wow.
and they didn't know that this was here, but here, let's where is my measuring tool? I'm in Street View. There we go. So I don't know. Let's do it from here. and then it's probably like roughly 10 miles into the jungle, and that's it. So, but somebody has actually been to it. Somebody's actually been to it and walked around and did some Google Earth photos or Street View photos from inside.
What?
Oh, that's cool.
Look at the pyramid. So imagine all of this is as dense as all this, because they've cleared out, they've slashed and burned it all. But you see that staircase coming through, and can you see the temple
up
at
to
the
the
top?
Wow.
A little bit, yeah.
Just covered in trees.
And this is probably the same size as Chichen Itza, I would say. And Chichen Itza, just to give everybody like an idea of what we're looking at. Let's go to.
And those trees, those are big trees. So those roots are probably all up in those rocks.
Oh yeah. So
they
here's
don't go down. They go out wide.
Here's Chichen Itza. So in the lost cities of the Maya tour that we're doing, we're gonna go here to Chichen Itza. So that pyramid is about the same size and is going to look roughly similar to this pyramid.
Wow.
And that city with 60,000 stone structures, there are multiple of these. Like probably I don't know, I would say at least a dozen pyramids that are this size. And so those are all, let's go back to where we were.
What you're saying is like that area is an earlier area in their civilization.
Yes, it's
like
much
this
earlier.
Chichen Itza is later in their civilization.
Well,
yeah, it's so much later that the Spanish were fighting in Chichen Itza. They couldn't get it back from the Toltec Maya. So the Toltecs were a civilization that came from over here, and then they kind of united with the Maya in Chichen Itza. And the Spanish who were coming in from Cozumel from probably these same roads right here, they were the Toltec Maya were just too powerful for the Spanish to win. So so you're looking at just this right here. I mean, that's how far those 60,000 structures are right here. And I mean, look at everything else that's around here. And there's a few cities that have been located. So, they fly in planes over grid lines, but you can't really see everything. So maybe the most massive things that are in the jungle, you see the top of a pyramid poking through the trees and you're able to easily see it, but it's not always the case. I mean, there are different periods of the Maya. I want to say towards the end of the classic era, they begin new architecture. And so they begin not building up, but building across, building long platforms. And they think that this might be a change from divine kingship, where they realized that exalting human beings as kings wasn't a very good idea. So they started worshiping their gods instead. And they were having councils of Maya rulers rather than one god king that ruled over all, because that really just wasn't working out for them. And and so they started building long structures rather than tall structures like these giant pyramids, even though they still did it. But some of those structures, like Okomtun, we find as we come up here, you get from these massive pyramids, even all the way over here in Palenque, wherever. Palenque is somewhere in this area. And even right here, we'll talk about this. This is the Lacandon jungle and the Maya. I mean, so like all that we've talked about, there's still two other giant jungles to go through, and this area of Belize. But as you go up this way, the architecture changes and it becomes less easy to find things because they're not as tall. They're the same size, just longer, but not as tall, right? So so here's the Peten. And there's several cities that have been found in here, but I would say upwards of, I don't even know, 24 more cities in here, maybe at the very least. And then right in here, in this little area, this is almost totally uncharted, but my mentor, Dr. Ed Barnhart, along this service road, he found a city with a pyramid as big as the one at Chichen Itza, just here in the middle of the jungle when he was exactly my age, 25 or 26. And so he found a city in here that was between these three mountains, giant pyramid. And so, they're everywhere. If we look down here in the Maya Mountains, this is where my first traditional real expedition, I'm going to come right here in this area. But real quick, we'll come over here to the Lacandon jungle. And I was also talking about, this is where I make my, at the very end of my Cosmic Summit presentation, I say that a good representation of how much we know about the ancient Americas can be seen in the Lacandon jungle. And so you go from, your urban areas all the way down to Bonampak, and that's 5 to 6 miles as the crow flies, right? Well, you still have all this jungle left to look at. That little bit is about as much as we know about this ancient world. And, the lost cities that we're looking for, now that I'm looking at this, they're not just in here. They could be right here too, or right out here in these little patches. They're found all the time. I'm going down a huge rabbit hole, but I'm kind of information dumping, but I think people will find all this interesting.
The question,
keep it going.
Question has to be asked, why did they decide to build a bunch of cities in the middle of a jungle and like one of the hardest places to build?
Right. Well, I would say probably just human ingenuity. You know what I mean? That they had all their resources that they could possibly need. They, according to modern day academia, they're like, why would they ever do that? When they have everything that they needed, why would civilization even sprout? Because when you're over here on this side of the world and the Sahara starts drying up around 8,000 BC all the way to 5 to 4,000 BC, and all these people who are living in the Green Sahara, which used to look like this, similar to the Maya world, they all have to migrate south, or they find themselves along the Nile River. When you find yourself along the Nile River, so this is Lower Egypt, this is Upper Egypt. They call it this because the Nile River runs north, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so you have Lower and Upper Egypt who are settling along this area, and you've got thousands of people living shoulder to shoulder. So they start building buildings, and rather than building across, they start building up. They're not farming as much anymore, right? So then you have civilization that sprouts here. And then along the twin rivers, the Euphrates and Tigris River, you have these civilizations out here. And then you go down to the Indus, I guess. Yeah. So in between Pakistan and India, you've got the Indus Valley. And so all of your main old world civilizations, they come after this area dries up, and then they're forced to build cities. But cities that are just as impressive are built right here in the greenery. And there's no real explanation for why they chose to do that other than just pure genius, ingenuity.
And they could, it wasn't super difficult.
Or who's to say? Sorry, who's to say that it always was jungle? Who's to say
that's a good point? Yeah,
like you just brought up Africa, how it went in one direction, right? It dried up. Well, maybe this didn't look like this when they built all this. I mean,
that's a good point, but it's so like the Maya aren't quite as ancient as all of these civilizations, and so there's still archaeological, geological evidence that it has always looked like this. It's actually been
when they built these. Cities.
It's actually been drying up and becoming more arid since then. I mean, you look at how green this is right here. It was the whole damn thing.
The whole place.
So it was worse.
Wow.
It was significantly worse than it is today. Yeah, significantly more dense. So so here's something really interesting. So Dr. Barnhart, when he was like 31 years old, starts working for University of Texas, I believe, and he starts excavating Palenque. So this is where I was at. So I'm going to show you guys like the main courtyard. I'll show you the palace and the Temple of Inscriptions, which is like the Temple of Inscriptions is like the most important Maya temple. So it's kind of a crappy photo, but this is the palace. All of this was completely covered in greenery when Franz Blom and Stevens and Catherwood arrived here in the 1800s and 1900s, early 1900s. And here's the Temple of Inscriptions. So look at this jungle beyond it. There's something in the jungle just south of here, but up the mountain called the Jaguar Temple. And that's how dense all of this jungle is. This is a pyramid right here. This is Pakal's son's pyramid. So the guy who's buried at the bottom of here, his son is buried right here, and you can't even see it. And you're standing in an open field next to it. So the only thing that was on display are these main ruins. And this is all that's pretty much still on display. But y'all want to see how big Palenque actually is? So look at all this right here. Palenque is actually this entire square of jungle right here. That's the whole city. And so if you go on Street View, you can see some places where people go out into the jungle and take some photos. And I want to say there's some places that are opened up out here. We'll see if we'll find something. Yeah. So here's how dense it is just outside of the city.
Jeez,
So let's see if we can find it. Let's see if we can find a structure.
So they had cleared that entire area to build this city.
Oh yeah. The Maya definitely did. So I would say like right here, you're probably looking at a small home or even a tomb or something like that. It's really, really hard to see, but you can kind of see the stone peeking through. That's a small structure, of course. That's about how dense it is. I mean, that's how hard it is. You better know what you're looking at when you're out there. Let's see if we can see another one.
Yeah, because it doesn't look too much different than just a small hill.
Yeah,
well, I didn't see anything, and then you zoomed in, and then you could see the lines of the rock. It almost looked like, I don't know.
So these are partially excavated. So these are the palaces that are on the side. So this is like the royal residence, and somewhere in here you're gonna find pools. Oh man, when I was in the jungle,
could you imagine?
I could pull up some photos, but so
the
amount of energy it would take
to
massive.
Clear that out would be insane.
Massive.
Oh yeah.
They just had their chainsaws. They went to Home Depot.
Let's see what's all the way out here.
Working out.
So when Dr. Barnhart arrived, I want to say there was 100 something. Oh, I bet you were gonna find something.
Half a man.
I wouldn't be surprised if these are structures right here.
Just those build-ups.
Look at that right there.
Look at that right there.
So okay. So Gary,
this looks like the aqueduct that you have a picture of.
This is plumbing right here. This is
plumbing. Yeah.
This right here. All right. So let's zoom out. Oh crap. Okay. So this is so tall that my head is about. I'm 5'10". My head came up to about right here.
And a half.
5'10" and a half. Yeah. I make that very clear during my speech. And so, yeah, my head comes up to about right here. And I was walking through this, and it actually gets taller on the inside. And when you're up here walking around in the jungle, this is all also cased in stone out here. Like, it's all just buried. But it actually gets taller inside. I would say this opening is almost 7 feet tall, and I'd say the inside is about 8 feet tall. And it's perfect on the inside. I mean, the foliage hasn't grown down too much in there. Maybe we see some other structures here, too. When you're here in person, it's just so hard to take it all in. So this one aqueduct that goes under the ground right here. Oh crap. Hold on. I got to reorient ourselves. This one aqueduct leads all the way back here to this river, this like a canal, this artificial canal that goes right by the palace, and it goes underneath the palace. There are toilets down here, and there's flowing water. So let's see if we can.
That's
see
amazing.
Yeah. So can you see how this comes down?
Yeah, it runs right in.
I can find something better, but this is the palace. This is where the royal, like the most prolific dynasty of Palenque, Kanish Anab Pakal. He's the greatest Maya king of Palenque, maybe the greatest Maya king ever. What the heck is that? And that's a UFO. And so they had bathrooms in here that had underwater plumbing that connected to this. And there's actually still water running through this. I'll find a better photo. Maybe this gives us it. Let's see. Yeah. So there's still a little bit of water running through this. This is all original construction.
And that's original.
Yeah. Wow. It's all original. And it goes all the way up into the mountain.
That's
an
aqueduct.
Ruins, all the way about a kilometer that way. And a kilometer that way as well. And and it connects to the entire city, and it has flowing water. So, I mean, it's amazing. And you'll be walking around in the jungle like I was out here, and you hear water flowing like under your feet. And so you wipe away some of the dust and foliage and shine your flashlight down into this stone crack. And there's a river under the ground running underneath you that's encased in limestone. And it's been flowing for 2,000 years. And the city goes all the way out here. I mean, it's all the way up on top of these mountains. And that's just one city. So when Dr. Barnhart arrived here in 1998, there was 100 something buildings, maybe 200 buildings that were mapped. And by the time he left, there were 1,300 buildings that had been mapped just in that little square. So then you come down here. Oh, here's another little.
Oh man,
this is the Piedras. This is the you're.
But before you move on,
the sizes of these things.
When was that city established?
So people started living in Palenque. Let's put it around year 0, I would say.
Okay.
You know, they probably started there because there are some Olmec influences. If you guys are familiar with the Olmecs, like the giant colossal heads, those guys come from Veracruz and Tabasco, right here at La Venta. This is like the heart of the Olmec heartland. So all the way down here at Palenque, wherever it is, all the way down here at Palenque, in some of these outer ruins, there are Olmec influences. So people could have been living at Palenque 500 BC to 1500 BC. You know, that's when it could have started. And so just this little square of jungle, there's 1,300 buildings in there. Oh, and I should say, this right here, this giant palace, there is another structure about right here that's about 30% larger than that giant palace. It's just not excavated. And they call it, the Maya name for it is like House of the Nawiaka, which means House of the Fertilants. And there's like legions of Fertilant snakes that live in this other structure that's out here that's bigger than the palace. So Dr. Barnhart just barely excavated it. But I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back.
Some tall boots.
Document.
Big, tall snake boots that go right up to your crotch.
So keep this little square of jungle in mind and come all the way down to the Piedras Negras jungle and then the Lacandon jungle.
Oh, man.
So south of Bonampak, even though there are names here, these names mean nothing. Like, these are named aerially. This is so remote that there is not a photo of the Lacanha, this like lake lagoon thing out here. Look, you click on it, there's no photo that comes up. The only photo is an aerial photo that's taken by helicopter probably like 15 or 20 years ago. I have never seen a photo of somebody who's actually walked out here. And so, so here's another mystery, kind of like an El Dorado type thing. So in this area of the Maya world, Bonampak and Yaxchilan and maybe Piedras Negras, which is up here, they found a city here in this area, was sacked by a city called White Dog. Well, they've never found White Dog, and I think due to some archaeological evidence and you know, the fact that nothing has been researched down here, that it's likely we're going to find White Dog or the city Ciudad Blanca, which is the white city, is going to be somewhere down here, probably not too far from this river that runs through this jungle. And so one day, I don't know, within the next 5 years or so, when I have a little more experience under my belt and doing really dangerous things, this is my next project, is to
go down that river,
is to map and go down the river just a little bit more in the highlands. Cause look, they build up a little bit higher than the river. Like, it was just a little bit of increase in elevation. So this is where Bonampak, I stood here at Bonampak, by the way, as well. I went to Bonampak. And so I'm going to guess that there's going to be more cities that are down in this area rather than, these are a little bit more swampy lowlands. I'm going to guess they're a little bit more in the highlands, because that would be more consistent with all of these Maya civilizations that lived in the highlands before they went down to the lowlands, just the way they built their cities. And so what's interesting is this Lake Lacanha comes from the name of it comes from the local Lacandon Maya people. Well, what's interesting is the city of Lacanha, where the king, this is really cool. This would be like the closest thing to El Dorado, where the king of Palenque came from. He was not born in Palenque. There was a giant controversy about his origins. His mother came from a city called Lacanha, where Palenque was in a fallout. They weren't doing very well. And this 12-year-old boy was brought in with his mother from the city of Lacanha to be the new king for Palenque. Well, what's interesting is they've never found Lacanha, and they thought it was up here. But I and some other archaeologists just have a hunch that it's probably not too far from the lagoon or lake that the indigenous people of this area called Lacanha. So I would bet you, even if you don't find the actual city itself, if this area were to be surveyed and mapped and explored, there would be a city right here next to this lake. I mean, this is just the Maya revered fresh water. I mean, this is like, I mean, I've never actually shown the exact location of this, but if you want to find a lost city, this is target number one right here.
It's got the river right next to it and that lake
and Bonampak. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just,
a good target.
It's amazing. So another thing that's interesting is right here in this area. Has anyone ever seen the Carolina Bays? This looks
Yes.
Yeah.
This looks like some kind of impact site, right? This looks like something landed in the ground right here. But then again, nobody has ever been out to study this.
Is that water?
How far?
Yeah, this is all water.
Well, God, what are those? Oh, up. If you go on the Yucatan,
So dense.
closer to where the Chicxulub impact was, there is I forgot what they're called. They go swimming in them. They're little holes in the ground.
Cenotes.
Cenotes. Thank you.
Yeah. So that brings us to my next expedition. I've never spoken about this before. So my next expedition, my first real one, is going to be in Belize. Okay, so we're going to land in Belize City. And first, I want to visit all the major sites of Belize. So outside of San Ignacio, you've got Zenantinish, which is somewhere right in this area. I don't know why it's not popping up. But you've got Zenantinish, and then you have Maashna, which is this lost city out here. I think it's been untouched for like 15 years. I'm going to go back and look at it. You've got La Milpa, all these other cities. But what's really interesting is, have you guys ever heard of the Blue Hole that's in, I talk about this in my Cosmic Summit speech, but the Blue Hole of Belize, have you all ever seen this?
I have heard of it. Yes.
Let's see, the Great Blue Hole. So
Blue Hole.
So people go diving here, and I want to say, what is this, 500 feet deep? A bunch of people die here. This isn't exactly like a cenote, and I don't necessarily understand the geological explanation behind it. But it's just a hole in the ground where the top of it, where the roof has collapsed in. Okay, well, if you go along those same horizontal lines sort of inland, well, not exactly the same, a little bit more south. So you come down, you follow this, there's this dirt road, muddy road that comes from San Ignacio. This is a 3.5-hour drive. And even though some of this stuff is labeled, there's not actually anything there except for a Blue Hole camp. This is a research camp. But you come all the way down to Caracol. This is the Palenque of Belize, and it's actually a little bit bigger. Like the architecture is bigger than Palenque. So we come down here. Oh, what the heck! Don't take us away. Take us here. So this is the city of Caracol. So this is a massive pyramid. I mean, it's so tall you can't even see the top. There's a whole other layer on the top of it. And so look at that. Those are pyramids right there, just completely covered. Look at that pyramid, and like the wall is poking out. And so sometimes, like, you can tell right here that see the trees growing on top of it. The roots of these trees split the rocks, or not. They don't split the rocks in half, but they split the stones from each other. And look at these. Look at the top parts of these buildings have collapsed. I mean, they're not even there anymore. And so this city is actually massive. This is just the central plaza area. But so that was basically the capital of the Maya world, of the Belize Valley Maya. But if you go another 3.5 hours as the crow flies, you end up finding this right here. This is called the Black Hole. This is a cenote, similar to a cenote. You got another one right here.
Yeah, two right.
And you have a third one right here, and there might be another one right there. So very, 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 very few people have ever gone out here, and they rappel down inside, and it's like 500 feet deep. Oh, and another thing to check out is, so the Great Well, or the Great Cenote of Chichen Itza. Sorry, we're flying all over the place, but I'm going to show you guys something freaking crazy. I showed Dr. Barnhart this, and he couldn't believe it. So let's go back to Chichen Itza, and there's a cenote. So this is like the Great Cenote of Chichen Itza. Have you guys ever seen this before? Where
seen pictures of it.
It's like the well where they would give sacrifices to Kukulkan and everything. So you go across. Let's not do miles. Let's do American. So it's 150 feet across, right? This is a massive cenote. Like, you go there, and I don't know exactly how deep it is, but it's 150 feet across. So let's go back to the informal name for this. There's no formal name, but the informal name is the Black Hole. And let's measure this across. So now you're looking at 800 feet across.
Wow.
That's how much bigger this one is.
It's
And
got to
so
be an impact site, right?
it's either that,
It appears to be.
either that, or there's a cave system that's underneath it that's collapsed, which there is a massive cave system that
okay.
connects to this. And so there have been.
Do you think some of the cenotes I guess north would be from the impact.
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly.
And that's actually something that Dr. Kenneth Ten Kersley, if you remember him from Cosmic Summit, he and I are going to go back to Tikal and do a dig there at Tikal to kind of study some maybe younger Dryas impact effects that or the effects that the younger Dryas impact had on the Maya. Because what's really interesting is the younger Dryas impact may have created the soil that made the Maya world so abundant. So that's another kind of interesting thing. But so people, they rappel down 500 feet in here, and there's very few teams that have ever done this. I mean, I'd say it's been done less than like a couple dozen times. And so because they've got to come out here on foot and by Jeep and chop Jeep trails and everything. It's crazy. So they go down in there and they found sacrificial altars. They found Maya skeletons on the inside with jade relics and pottery. And the actual crystal skull that inspired Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was found in a cave system that connects to this black hole right here. And it was found by another explorer. And it was basically just like the beheaded head of a Maya person who was placed upon an altar deep in these cave systems. I mean, probably somewhere under here, under the ground. And his head was placed up there. The flesh has, disintegrated away or degraded away. And it's just the skull left. But the skull being in that cave for over 1,000 years has made it crystallize. And so that's where the actual crystal skull comes from. But nobody...
Man, Uncanny Valley, because those look like skeleton eyes. You seen it, Garrett?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They look like the sockets.
Yeah, there it is.
That is interesting.
With the nose.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's
yeah. So
I've seen the skull right there too. A little one part. Yeah.
What I would like to do is I'm assuming that the Maya people who are out here were not just, I mean, they may have been making pilgrimages all the way out here from Caracol, but I don't really find that being, in studying the Maya, it's kind of just common sense. I mean, you're looking at, let's do this in miles. So, I mean, you're looking at 8 miles walking barefoot through the jungle. And if not barefoot, maybe not a whole lot better. And, maybe sandals or something like that, or the little shoes that they had. And so what I'm guessing is there's going to be satellite towns that live around here. And I'm thinking they're not going to be too far away from, okay. So another thing I'm thinking is that I'm not thinking that the Maya rappelled down 500 feet to get in here. I think that, I know that this right here is an entrance to here. I think there are also other entrances around here as you come down to the bottom of this mountain. And what I want to do is rappel down inside and follow the
find your way out.
Yeah, and find my way out. And I think if I find my way out, I'm probably going to find my way to a smaller like satellite town that might have a small pyramid, something like that.
Yeah.
And probably where that's going to be is in a flat area like this, probably somewhere right in here where it gets flat. And, I wish there was a way that I could see reservoirs in this area. But I can't. But I'm thinking that if I find my way out of here with a team of people, we're going to find a city. And so, I might spend a month camping out here. But cool. That is my first real
That's rad.
That I'm going to do. And it's in a country.
Cool, dude.
It's in a country that speaks English. So if I get bit by a fertilance, I can like quickly, get some help.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I say quickly, but more efficient.
You got to take the anti-venom or whatever it is that you.
Yeah, I don't know like help, but I mean, okay, so then you're looking at that, but then look all down here. I mean,
it's just completely uncharted.
This is all uncharted territory, and these are called the Maya Mountains. And I mean, what I'll do is, so they call this the national park, but I mean, really, nobody goes all the way out here. And yeah, this is, one day I'd love to be able to explore all this. I probably won't, but there's just so many other things I want to do. So, okay, so we've dived into all of that, right?
Yep.
So look at all this jungle that's here. And, you try to find these cities here. Imagine trying to find El Dorado.
That's freaking massive.
Jeez.
Yeah, there's no way.
When you put it like that,
the science is settled.
Yeah, we've discovered everything.
Yeah,
we figured it all out.
Yeah, so it's I'm gonna try to get my camera back. Give me 2 seconds.
Take your time. It's all good.
Whenever I
Luke is good at that, man.
It was always when I would bring something in when I shared, and it was like something with StreamYard was like, oh no,
like we only have enough bit rate for the image and not you.
Bottlenecking. Well, now
Luke's really good at doing that, where he's like, okay, here's all this stuff, and whoa, look at all this area that we haven't discovered. All right, zoom out. This is all the area we haven't discovered yet. Yeah.
You need fiber. Fiber helps you poop, makes your internet fast.
It does.
Yeah.
Hey.
I feel like there's like some kind of drone technology that could help us do this surveying. You get a whole bunch of drones and just like fly it over that area. Just to at least get eyeballs over that area.
I can imagine Starlink being something that
really
you
helpful,
can integrate into your camp so that you can actually do post updates and live stream from these zones. I know it's like, but you think you're a few years out from being. I don't know when you're going to do this month-long expedition. It might be a decade away.
It'll probably be a year from right now, I would think.
Okay, not too far. Not too far.
There you go. A Cosmic Summit. Is it in a different place next year?
Did I hear that? So it's going to be in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Okay.
4 Seasons, maybe. I think that might be what it's called. It's going to be an event center that's like twice as big, and hopefully twice as many people are going to be there. So I'm speaking again. I'm going to be covering, I don't know, probably lost cities of Central America and South America. It's going to be like a broad view of everything that we don't know, or I might do a deep dive of like El Dorado or something along those lines.
The one thing your presentation shows is there is so much out there. We have no clue. We have just scratched the surface. Like, I think, going into this when I was a kid, it was just the pyramids and some other ruins. Right. But like the more they find, for one, the pyramids have preserved because they're in the middle of the desert, but they're still as the go-to as they are, they're still the awesome structures that they are. They're still amazingly old. We still don't know, don't really know what they were built for. And they are so far superior to everything else. And they're older than most everything else.
It's crazy. Like when I spend a lot of my time studying the Americas, which is 2,000 to 3,000 years old, but you go to Egypt and you're looking at 5,000 to 6,000 at least. 5,000 to 6,000 at least.
Turkey
maybe twice
gets even older.
Or 3 times.
The chat has pulled together for $2 and asked me, will you do an episode on the concept of time?
Me?
No, they're asking me.
Oh, okay.
I'm late.
But it's all backwards.
Very,
very well done.
I saw what you did there, and I figured it out before I put it up there. And Chris Persia, the Canadian Wrench, has become a member. We have Luke. Says, hi, Luke. What's your view of the ancient Chinese reaching South America? Many years ago, a colleague of mine said there were Chinese lighthouses found.
Okay, so I'm not an expert on ancient China. I had to study it for 1 semester in college, and I mean, it's vast. Like it goes back. It's just as old as ancient Egypt. We just don't know a lot about it in the West because that's Eastern culture, right? I mean, ancient China did not inspire Western culture. Egypt and Greece and Rome did, right? So I don't know a whole lot about it. But what's interesting is this is the only person I've ever seen mention the fact that the Chinese may have reached South America. I don't know about the Chinese lighthouses being found. I'd have to look into that. But I have seen kind of an uptick in serious archaeologists entertaining the fact that that Chinese expeditions may have been in North America as well. And that's something to dive into that I'm not an expert on. I wish I could know it all. But the Chinese were able to do that. Absolutely. But then again, they'd be crossing the Pacific Ocean. So golly,
I think the Chinese and the Indus culture are way older than they say they are. And you even mentioned that there's like this Eurocentric point of view, especially when they go to India, other places like that, that they really try to force their paradigm. And yeah, some stuff has been aged. But like, again, you can't age stone, and they have China has burned so many records so many times over the years.
Man.
And they kept studious records. They were very good at it. And
yeah, man, wouldn't you love for China to be like a halfway decent country, and we could know about their ancient past, you know? I mean, there's no telling what it's like to be an archaeologist working in China. I mean, like, it's got to be so regulated, and who knows what reasons they have to keep things from the outside. You know what I mean? They probably, it's probably just
pyramids, hundreds, thousands of pyramids everywhere. And most of them are just on farmland, and they cover them up. And, you know, for one, they have reverence, so they don't want it messed with. But there's also, they want to, you know, keep a lid on all.
There's a secrecy to it.
Yeah. If you go back and look, and people much smarter than me have done that, like how many things just came from China, like the Roman candle, and so much more was already invented years before it was rediscovered later. That's a whole rabbit hole.
I wish I had a better answer. I'm just not an expert on ancient China. You know, there's so many rabbit holes to go down. It would take multiple lifetimes to know it all.
We do know through Graham, though I know through Graham. I'm not saying he was the source of the information, that there is DNA evidence of the Polynesians in the middle of the Amazon jungle.
Oh yeah.
So they made it somehow.
They made it down there.
Yeah. Well, and it's amazing. So I mean, I could be wrong, but I think the Rapa Nui culture is who they credit for building Easter Island or creating Easter Island, whatever.
Yes.
And so I did like a weekend long deep dive study on that, maybe like 6 months ago. And because there's only so much to know. I mean, we just hardly know anything of those guys, but they theorize. I mean, this is how silly, and it could be real, but it's just how silly and how sometimes far-flung archaeological theories are. And that's fine that sometimes they're far-flung, but it's the ego that's attached to these far-flung theories that it creates this like really strange world. And so, but archaeologists, what they think is that Polynesian people saw that the birds on a regular basis were coming from the middle of the ocean and flying into Indonesia, Polynesia, and then going back. And so for some reason, I don't know the exact archaeological history, if anybody knows, for some reason they needed to leave Polynesia, Indonesia. So they were like, hey, let's build these little rafts and sail out into the abyss of nothingness, where they knew sharks. I mean, they knew about sharks. They had seen sharks. They'd seen stingrays. People have been killed by jellyfish. I'm 100% certain of that, you know. But they were like, hey, let's follow these birds out into the abyss of blue nothing. And then they eventually find their way to Hawaii. Then they find their way to Easter Island. And then they find their way to South America. I mean,
it makes sense. I feel like it makes sense.
It makes sense. But like, you know, archaeologists can only go so far in what they propose their theories are. And so to have so much of your ego tied up in your theories is the real silly part, right? Because all we're doing is
we've talked about it. There needs to be more of a coalition between different expertise, because it seems like it's very much like archaeologists are just down this road and that's all the information that they'll accept. But I'm like, why don't we have some like geologists and some ornithologists? Maybe that would be a way to like confirm that would, like, yeah, they would come from this direction and it makes a lot of sense from this time. I feel like we need a whole lot more cross.
Yeah. Well,
that's what I love about Randall. Randall, he says he reads a different scientific study every day, and it's from a different. It could be from anywhere. Like he'll pluck and pull and contrast ideas, and it's like that's what we really.
Everything
need.
just seems
you get stuck in your little worldview.
And what's interesting is, so in the Maya world and in Maya archaeology, archaeologists there don't even communicate with each other. Like there's not a council of people who study the Maya world where one guy makes this discovery and he's able to easily get in contact with this other researcher and say, hey, look what I found. Does this have any implication on your site? Oh, look at the determination that we have made because of this find. And we're now going to start teaching this in textbooks, and then another archaeologist sees that and they go, what the hell? Like, when did this become a thing? They don't communicate with each other at all. And maybe in Egypt, they have a much more the Ministry of Antiquities is probably a lot more put together and they're able to funnel everything that comes out. But in the Maya world, I mean, it's like a free for all. Like when something gets discovered, it gets published. People in the Maya world, like Central and South America, this is why I love it. And I'm becoming more obsessed with it because it's real. Like if an archaeologist came up with undeniable evidence that there was a civilization as old as the Younger Dryas in the Amazon, it would come out that day. That day it would appear. But in Egypt, that doesn't happen, So
it's like you've got negatives and positives to both of those. It's like it could be completely separated. Nobody's communicating with each other, but you can get your information out without going through all these hoops.
Oh, yeah.
And the other one is like you have to go through the hoops, and then you get the information out. And then if that information is incorrect and a lot of people hang their hats on that, then it's really hard to take it away when you find some new information. So it's like double-edged sword.
Yeah. I forgot, God, what country it was in. Graham was talking about it in America before. There is and I think he talked about it in Ancient Apocalypse. There's a pyramid that's near a town in it's either Central or South America. That nobody can get to. There's no real infrastructure to the government, and the town is just excavating it themselves. Cool. And they're but you can't go there. Like if you get near it, they do
really
want you touching.
I'm trying to think of what. It's not Cholula.
It's not Cholula. It was
and it's in Ancient Apocalypse.
It's not Belize, but it is
America before, I think.
Let me look at
it's America before, and it was also mentioned, I think, in Ancient Apocalypse, and he mentioned it in his talk at Contact in the Desert too.
Okay. I wish I was at that.
Just how many places? He said he was able to have a driver get him close, and that was about it. And he was able to take a picture, but like they don't want any outsiders anywhere near it. Because they're robbing it. So good for them.
Oh yeah, I totally.
How many places are there like that where we heard at Cosmic Summit there was that place, not Göbekli Tepe, but they found that location under a town, and they knew about it, and then they're like, oh, we don't want to tell anybody. And now
I mean that was happening at so that structure that I said is bigger than the palace at Palenque. There was a local mob boss in that area in the 90s who had his own guys excavating that site because he owned that little strip of land. And there were more sites that were I can't give away too much.
Sites is good.
Yeah. So there are sites behind like commercial properties that people visit all the time, and the people who own the commercial properties just go into their backyard and they're excavating a pyramid and selling the items on the black market, right? So that's another thing, man, is like just what's lost because of, I'm all about like, if I find a pyramid in the middle of the jungle and there's an entrance, I'm going in that damn thing right then. I mean, I don't care about what dangers are going in. If there's, some ancient Peruvian, South American temple like Indiana Jones is in Raiders with all the booby traps, I don't care. I'm going in. But
Adios.
I don't believe in
the penitent man.
Yeah. I do not believe in stealing things and selling them on the black market because it's like a crime against humanity. Like we all need to know, what were people up to? What did they build? Like people deserve to be able to see that, to have all the glory, blah, 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 and I don't really love the idea that stuff is taken out of its home country. Like I think it should stay in the home country, but if it's taken to like a Western country, like, England or the United States, and it's put in a museum, I don't love that, but at least it's cherished and people still get to see it and everybody gets to read about it and know about it. But selling things on the black market, I don't know. I don't like that because I wish that we could actually see what these people found. And then you talk about the Spanish. I mean, we have records that the Aztecs were ordering. They're records of so like it's similar to what's it called? Is it the Diary of Merer? Have you guys heard of that in Egypt?
No.
So the Diary of Merer, I think this is found in Upper Egypt. This is just a similar thing I'm drawing a parallel to. So there was a guy named Merer who was kind of he was like the chieftain of a construction job, basically. And it's an itinerary of things that he was ordering to take back to the horizon of Khufu. So he needed so many lines, so many grand.
Jimmy talked about this in one of his videos. This is coming back
did he?
now.
Yeah. So
I think so, from Bright Insight. Yeah.
Yeah. So as a side note, archaeologists try to say, or I say some archaeologists, more like journals. I mean, archaeologists aren't even the ones who are getting all up in people's grill about this. This is like anti-right, anti-conspiracy people who are like, this is proof that we now know how the pyramids were built, even though it's not. It's just an itinerary of, or it's a
it's like a order
shopping list
of goods. Yeah.
There's an actual word.
It says here it's a log
purchase order
of a small official involved in the transportation of blocks of limestone to the Giza pyramid.
Yeah. So they found something similar to that I mean, I don't care about the Diary of Merer. I mean, it doesn't prove anything. It says he was taking it back to the horizon of Khufu. That could have been Khufu's palace. You know what I mean? We know Khufu existed, but we don't know that he's actually connected to the pyramid that they say he's connected to. That could have been his palace. It could have been anything. I mean, we just don't know. Anyways, they found something similar to that in the Aztec world, where the Aztecs were ordering 485,000 pieces of paper a year. Okay. That's how many books that they were writing, and they were keeping up with their history and everything. And we know that the Maya were doing the same thing. And we know that the Maya were doing the same thing for over 1,000 years before the Spanish ever showed up. Okay. So they were writing books. Hundreds of thousands of pieces of paper were being made a year for over 1,000 years. The Spanish show up and commit, my opinion, a crime against humanity greater than the burning of the Library of Alexandria. Probably, maybe equal. They burned every single book other than four. Other than 4 books, they burned every single one. And you're talking about hundreds of thousands of pieces of paper being manufactured every single year in Mesoamerica. They burned it down to 4 books. And the 4 books, I couldn't even say this in a couple minutes, how significant those books are. Have you guys ever heard of the Dresden Codex? So
yes,
the Dresden Codex was
I was sipping coffee.
Yeah, the Dresden Codex was a Maya book that was somehow, somewhere along the way, was smuggled out of the Yucatan, and it was taken to Germany, and it was in Dresden, Germany, and it survived the bombings of Dresden actually during World War II, and like the pages melted together, blah blah blah. And another interesting thing, a little boy who was inside the Museum of Ancient History of Dresden, Germany, who was hiding in the museum during the bombings of Dresden, grew up to be an archaeologist, and he's the guy that opened up and deciphered the Dresden Codex.
No way.
Yeah. It's just like one of those synchronicity things. And so the Dresden Codex, every single thing, and we know a lot. I mean, I have a book here somewhere. I have like a bit. Okay, hold on.
Imagine if we discover one of these cities, and it's been covered up for hundreds of years, maybe even older than when the Spaniards got there, and they never touched it, and we find a library.
Yes,
and it's got all the information in there.
Yeah, that's one of the incentives.
That's like a holy grail.
Yeah. So from the Dresden Codex and a couple of other things, but mostly from the Dresden Codex, we know all of this about Maya astronomy and mathematics and sacred geometry from one book.
One of the 4.
From one of the 4 books.
And they were aware of the golden
ratio.
What is that book?
What's that book you just held up?
This is
what is that?
Foundations of Cultural Astronomy. And it's cultural astronomy in Mesoamerica.
That's a book right there.
So I mean, it'll blow your mind. I mean, like there's a part in here where it talks about the Temple of the Sun at Palenque, And the Temple of the Sun was created by Pakal. It was created by his son Khan Balam, and Khan Balam aligned the Temple of the Sun. He created it through like sacred geometry, proportions, and everything. So it's proportionate according to sacred geometrical proportions, and every single pillar and door in the Temple of the Sun is aligned to all 4 of your main like precession cycle. Yeah. All 4 of the solstices, all of the eclipses and everything. It's lined up so perfectly that like even diagonal corners align with each other to the sun. And as the sun moves through the room, it's like a clock of the entire earth. Like the temple itself is a clock that will tell you what month you're in. I mean, it's unbelievable. And there's nothing written about that. But I guarantee you, all of the Maya architecture, so the way that I found out that temple that I jumped down inside of was actually a vaulted ceiling that was above ground is in this book that's Function and Meaning in Classic Maya Architecture. Old book. All of your old history, archaeological books, some of the information and the determinations they make as far as factually are a little bit off, but the observations that they make are the most interesting because it's not heavily filtered out like university things are today. It's just all nowadays, it's just all cotton candy, like ultra safe stuff to publish, right? So I'm reading this book, and I'll show you where I end up reading about vaulted ceilings in the Maya world, if I can find it easily. So it kind of looked like that. That's just one example. So I started looking into these vaulted ceilings, and there is a diagram here that is literally the style of architecture that I found myself. And when I read that, it blew my mind. And I was like, that's what I was standing in. And it all came together. And then I realized how easily things got buried in the jungle. I mean, that temple I was in was completely above ground, and now it was completely underground. So it's just another thing is that in the Maya world, you had people who all of these cities are inspired by other cities, right? So what that indicates is like, in Palenque, there were inspirations from Teotihuacan. Do you guys know what that city is? That's the massive megalithic city with the temple of Quetzalcoatl and the pyramid of the moon and the pyramid of the sun. That's aligned to Orion's belt in the same way that the pyramids on the Giza Plateau are. Yep. And so
total coincidence.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And so all these other cities are inspired. A lot of them are inspired by Teotihuacan. Teotihuacan's kind of like the center of Mesoamerica, although I don't think it's the most interesting part of Mesoamerica. But they're all inspired by each other, which that indicates to me in the architecture kind of like it all changes at the same time. Like just when a new architecture style comes in, it goes like that whole cultural area changes to that style of architecture. And so what that indicates is that there are guilds of architects going across. And so they obviously had blueprints. There's never been a blueprint found. No. Maya architecture is exact as Egyptian. It's exact. And the hieroglyphs are more intricate and more complex than any. I mean, there's no other culture that's even half as complex as Maya hieroglyphics and Maya relief.
Can you show us? Can you show us any?
Sure.
I can't picture any. Like you say hieroglyphs, and they
were all in loincloths. Little stone tools making it up as they go. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's the one where they say he's in a spaceship.
Let me see if I can. Yeah,
there you go, right there.
Full screen.
I have a relief of that too. Giorgio gave it to me.
Come on.
So this is the lid of Pakal's tomb. They say it looks like a spaceship, but I don't think so. Come on, man.
Put your hand with it. Put the tablet.
There you go. There you go.
Right there.
Look at that. There it is.
So all along the sides of it these are all hieroglyphics that are, well, some of them are, but they're telling the story of Pakal. And when you look at it, it's almost like it's like a psychedelic trip, like looking at Maya art. And so basically what's happening is this is like a kind of like an underworld demon god, and it's pulling him down, and it's like reaching up and grabbing Pakal and pulling him down into Xibalba, which is their underworld. And they think that this is the Maya tree of life, the Seba tree. And then up here is a bird that might represent like Quetzalcoatl or Kukulkan. But I actually don't think that this is the best.
No more.
There's better out there.
No more.
It's no more.
Yeah. So I actually don't think that this is the best representation. I'm trying to think of what exactly.
There we got some more.
I could show you. Why don't you look up Maya Stela Copan, and you'll get a better idea.
Yeah, Garrett will be able to spell all that.
Yeah.
Maya. And then Stela. There's
Everybody gets to see you spelling it too. That's my favorite.
Stelae.
Yep.
Stela.
Copan. So Copan.
This is why I try not to put my searches on screen.
On screen.
Wow.
Whoa! Wow.
There you go.
Now,
Whoa!
Now look at how much of like a mind.
It's amazing.
That is looking at that. I mean, in every single thing, like it's not just made for aesthetics. It is all telling a story. Every single little piece on there is telling you something. You know, the Maya are speaking to people from the past. Look at that. How, like these have to be. It takes like one person years to decipher everything that the Maya wrote down. I mean, it's a mind trip looking at these. So it's just the ancient Americas are a rabbit hole that I'm so fortunate to have fallen into. Because
it's like an alien race. It's like an alien culture that we don't know anything about, like only like 5%. And it's completely covered up.
And
it feels absolutely bizarre.
So much detail goes into that. And this, I mean, not exact, but it makes you think of India. It makes you think of Asia.
It really does. When I was just looking at something a second ago, and there are a lot of similarities in the architecture and in the art of between the Maya and ancient India.
Yep.
And, you know, I'm not necessarily alluding to a connection there, but like we have common sense and the human race is still alive for a reason, right? I mean, we have common sense.
Yep.
And so, well, and what's interesting is Cambodia is the twin civilization to the Maya. They notice the same thing in the stars. They have a lot of the same tendencies as a civilization. They have sometimes similar architecture. They both live in the jungle, similar ways of life and so on.
What was their culture? It was common. It was called what was their culture called? I read it in a book. Help me, chat. It's like common. Something.
Calm. I'm not sure where in the world was it.
It was in Cambodia. It's Jesus.
Yeah, I'm not.
That's the problem. There's just too much information in my head and
there's
system.
Khmer,
like the commerce section. Yeah, it's
Chat's,
something. But yeah, it's very similar.
There's so much.
I need to take a little break here because we have a coffee to talk about.
Oh,
sorry,
you're good.
Coffee.
Conversation, but
what?
so we have a mug that you can get now.
Yeah, it's a clean mug.
It's a clean mug.
Look at that sucker.
It's a little shiny.
Little shiny. Well, I plan on working on that by dripping coffee all over it. So let me read this. Be sure to follow the Nerdrotic Instagram. You can win stuff like this awesome Forbidden Frontier private blend with my mug. Oh, it says to show it. So I'm showing it.
Are they going to win that one that you put your saliva all over?
You're going to win this one. This mug. Spiced coffee. It is spiced. It's got a little touch of chocolate that makes it great. A late night pick me up. Our coffee is from the Cruz family farms in Colombia. They have a wide variety of flavors, including the Nerdrotic Heritage Blend, FNT blend, and the Feathers of Liberty. Try some today. We got this.
The Feathers
Sacrifice
of
the pyramid.
You heard that?
I just
put it on camera though.
Okay, you're making fun of my age, you ageist bastard.
I was. You're old.
You never mess up on a stream, Adam. I watch your streams.
Bro, I definitely mess up. I own it.
I do too.
I'm proud of my mess ups.
I'm proud of my.
You know what? Because of those
retardation.
mess ups, I'm really good at reading out loud now. It took me years, but I could do it.
Not. I've actually gotten worse, but that's okay. I'm old.
Somehow.
Just how it is.
That's right. So we have that, and we got to get some super chats.
I can't believe it's almost 2 hours already.
Yeah, man.
Luke, I want to say before we even get into super chats, you need to come back on. I would love to keep talking to you about. It felt like you were holding back because you knew that you could dive into some rabbit holes.
Oh yeah,
I'm down for that. We're about that here.
There's so many things that like if I get going on it, it's going to take me another 20 minutes just to flesh out. I never found the exact diagram that I was looking for, but this is sort of what I had jumped down into. So
cool.
I can't really do this. It's
kind of like a pot
shape.
It's
so
like
the hole was right here, right? And I jumped down. And landed inside of it. And so that ended up being my camera's all orange all of a sudden. But that when I was looking at these diagrams, I was like, this ended up being that far above ground. And there's another subterranean chamber underneath some of these structures. So I was all the way up here, and further underneath me, there may have been something else. So it's infatuating. I mean, there's so much mystery there. One sentiment I tried to get across at Cosmic Summit, come to Cosmic 24, by the way,
24
was one thing I tried to get across was in all the mystery that we look for in Atlantis, just as much and arguably more exists in the ancient Americas. Maybe it's not all Atlantis related, but it's certainly akin to El Dorado and lost civilizations that knew a hell of a lot more than we even understand. I mean, if one little Maya codex proved, showed us all of this about what the Maya knew.
Yeah.
Diego de Landa in 1574, 1560 something, it said that he burned pyres, and a pyre would be a small mound of books. How many books would I have to stack to make a small mound?
How much would we know? We know about mother culture. We know about Atlantis. We would.
Oh, yeah. I just, man, like it just it drives me insane.
That was the same thing I said after your speech. I was talking to Gary. I said basically the same thing. It was like, we have Atlantis. It's over there. It's like we know where it is. We just haven't gone and discovered it.
Potentially.
We know it's there.
Potentially.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the equivalent. The equivalent, an entire civilization that has technology.
That's much
It
older.
could be. I think the Azores argument makes a little more sense when you look at everything, but I think that the Eye was definitely a part of the civilization that existed, the empire or whatever.
That could have been older. We don't even know, but that could have been the template for all these other cultures over time.
I gotta say, I didn't even know the Mayans made books at all till today. Like when I grew up, the image of Mayans was like sacrificing humans on the top of an altar, and like that's it. That's all they went with. There was no
about sacrificing humans from the top of an altar that they used the golden ratio to build. That's what it was.
So what's really interesting is this is the reason that there used to be a thing that would go around about the Maya being a utopian society. So what you're thinking of is actually the Aztecs. The Aztecs got the bright idea that we're like, oh, okay. I know we're getting kind of close to the end. I'm gonna tell this last story. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, that was my fault.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I hate that time's going by so fast.
Yeah.
So the Maya, I'll say two things. So the Maya, they did not necessarily exalt war and violence. In some ways they did. In a lot of ways they did not. And they didn't build cities that had walls up around them to keep people out. And they were city states that tried to work amongst one each other. So we call them all the Maya. They were actually their own individual civilizations. So each city was its own civilization that worked kind of independently from other civilizations, right? So you have like Palenque, that's its own thing. And then you have Yaxchilan and Bonampak. They were all their own cities, their own civilization with their own kings and their own royalty, but they were in communication with the other people trying to be like, okay, are these other people who just came into town, do you have good or bad experiences with them?
These Yucatans over here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're telling them about the city of gold. It's further down. Yeah, pass it along the river before they get here.
It was similar to that. So they were city states. They all worked kind of for the collective good of the overall larger, greater area, but they had their own individual kings, right? So they believed in human sacrifice, but they only sacrificed their best. So if you were the prettiest girl in town, your head was going to get chopped off and you were going to be sacrificed to Kukulkan. If you were, but they didn't do it to the royalty though. They did it to the best of the poppers, right?
Of course.
If you were the winner of the Maya ball game, you were going to get beheaded and sacrificed to Kukulkan.
But it would be an honor though, right? Then they would
but
happily
they
go
were
and
going
do
to-
it.
Yeah, it would be an honor.
Winning. Yeah, that is a commitment to winning.
Yeah. So it would be an honor for them. The Aztecs, they came from this place called Aztlan, which to this day nobody knows where that was. That's where they say that they come from, which could have actually been like New Mexico or Utah, as far north as Utah. And then that name of Aztlan could go back way further than that. But they come down. These are like nomadic, savage wanderers. I mean, I have no qualms with talking about how evil the Aztecs were. I mean, they were as bad as people say the Spanish were. And so they're like these nomadic, savage people who come down from Utah and New Mexico. They were geniuses, though. I should say that they were just bad, really bad people. And so they come down from Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, blah blah blah. The Sonoran, Chihuahuan Desert, come all the way down to the Mexico Valley. They're trying to find a place to settle down, and they're trying to find a place to settle down. And all the surrounding cultures. And by this time, I should say that Teotihuacan had already fallen. It looked like a big mountain. All those pyramids looked like big mountains. Like Teotihuacan culture is gone at this point. These are all the leftover people there. So the Aztecs are now in the area, and they're kind of on the outside, like a predator, like looking for where are we going to settle? Where is the place we're going to go? And they worship their god Quetzalcoatl. I believe at this time they were still worshiping Quetzalcoatl. And so they are approaching all of these towns and tribes, like wanting to live there. And I shouldn't say towns, tribes. I should say full-on cities. They want to live there, but they're so savage and so nomadic, and just they're not fitting in with like civil society. So all of these, local tribes are like, no, get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. We do not want your kind here. You guys are not fit to be in a civil society. So they approach a civilization. Man, it's called like the Calhuan. It's kind of hard. It's hard to pronounce, but it's called the Calhuan civilization. And so they approach this city, and they basically say, we're the Aztecs. We want to live here. And the Calhuan had heard about the Aztecs and thought, okay, well, maybe we can just use these guys because we want to take over the surrounding area of the Mexican Valley and kind of fill the void that Teotihuacan left after they fell. So they're like, well, since the Aztecs are so savage, let's use them as our mercenaries to fight these other civilizations. So then they're like, since these guys are so rough, let's give them this little island area that's in the middle of Lake Texcoco. And so I think it's Texcoco. Let's give them this little island that's rocky. You can't plant anything. It's full of snakes, this, that, and the other, and they're probably going to fall apart. And maybe they all die off, or maybe they learn to become civil because they can't survive out there. Well, the Aztecs go out there and thrive, and they build a city called Tenochtitlan out there, and it quickly becomes massive and powerful, and they're able to have agriculture in the area, and it's perfect. It can be perfectly defended because it's surrounded by water. So then they become sort of a peer of the Calhoun culture or whatever while doing mercenary work for them. And then they say, you know what? We want to be equals. So the Aztecs say, we want to be equals. Let's approach the Calhoun culture with one of our princes. And we want our prince to marry the princess of the Calhoun culture. And we're going to merge both of them and become the greatest empire since Teotihuacan of Mesoamerica. Because the Maya are falling apart at this point. This is like 1100 AD. So 300 years before the Spanish show up. And so, or maybe a little less than that. And so they approach the Calhoun culture, and the king is like, okay, this is probably a good idea. I probably want to make friends with the Aztecs now that they're so powerful. So he gives them their daughter. They take their daughter back. The princes and the priests, they all get high off of, who knows, like peyote or something, and they go visit Quetzalcoatl, which I should say, I think there's some legitimacy to all this. Like, all these civilizations did so much for their gods. To assume that there's absolutely nothing.
That's another rabbit hole.
Yeah.
We'll definitely go down that next time.
Yeah,
Next time, yes.
to assume there's nothing legitimate about it, I think is crazy. Anyways,
Agreed.
so they go into this trans state where they become like, you know, they would transform into jaguars in this translucent state, and they meet with Quetzalcoatl, and Quetzalcoatl tells them, no, we're actually not going to become peaceful and merge with the Kowloon culture. I want you to sacrifice her daughter and peel her skin off and wear it. So they sacrifice her, they cut her head off, they peel all of her skin off. The prince puts her skin on, and they invite the king to come to Tenochtitlan to see her daughter completely skinned and being worn by the prince.
That's some
and
bad peyote.
And then they kill the king of the Kowloon culture, and then conquer the Kowloon culture, and then the Aztec Empire is like born. And so from there, they realize, you know what, we're not going to sacrifice our own people like the stupid Maya are doing, and maybe the Toltecs are doing, and whatever else is going on. We're going to sacrifice other people, and we're going to capture more people and sacrifice all of them. So they built Tenochtitlan, and from there, for the next 300 years, they are wiping out Mesoamerica, turning everybody making everybody Aztec or killing them. And then another big dog shows up, the Spanish. Yep. And then they're
all like, Jesus.
Yeah. And then it's all out war between two merciless cultures, going head to head for all of the riches of Mesoamerica. And the only
thank you for that.
The only reason that the Spanish won was because of influenza or not influenza, but like plagues
germs
of diseases that were going through. The Aztecs were winning, and the Maya and the Toltec were winning. The Maya and the Toltec weren't killed off by all the disease that the Aztecs were. There's a lot of things that play into that. But like I said earlier, how the Toltec Maya, they had fused together in Chichen Itza. They fought off the Spanish. The Spanish couldn't conquer Chichen Itza. The only reason the Spanish ultimately won was because Mesoamerican people were very hygienic. Like, they didn't have all the diseases. They weren't living in nasty, dirty streets of Spain and England like Westerners were. They lived in kind of utopian societies where everything was natural, right? So they didn't have the immune systems that are used to just living in slums.
People walking around in their own poop.
Yeah, they didn't.
Let's go.
Yeah. They didn't have the immune system that homeless people do in San Francisco, and so they wiped them out. And the Spanish figured this out, so they started gifting the Aztecs. They're like, you know what? Like, I know we're at war right now, but give these blankets and pillows to your children, to your sick people, to your women. Let's just leave them out of that. But the pillows and blankets were infested with disease, and it just
and we passed that on as well. We Americans did that as well.
Yeah, so
that's an old one. All right, I got to read some soup.
Okay, sorry.
Man, that was great though. That was great.
Good. That was fucking awesome.
I would watch a movie about that, like a historical epic about all of that.
Yeah.
Joey R75 says, "Let's go. This makes me happy. It makes me happy too." Joey, thank you. We got Bob Jester 2B for $20. We wonder why there are lost civilizations with clear indications of purges of fact and knowledge every few generations. Are we going through a purge now with the far left's war on science and facts and dumbing down our knowledge? Potentially we could be. Could be, but like the thing is, the last 20 years we've been sharing more knowledge with each other than ever, thanks to this little thing called the internet. So it's going to be very difficult to shut that down and keep people happy. You know what? It probably ended the pandemic is if they decide to use that kill switch, and we were cut off from the internet, then we'd be pretty pissed.
That's next year.
That would upset.
Yeah.
That's
well,
next year.
Looks like we're getting They're trying to ramp this garbage up again right when we're going, dude. Right when we're going,
Dude,
to the UK.
right when we're going to the UK.
And this happened to me. No, there's a simple answer. No, you just say
Yeah, I think people are getting to the point where they're just kind of done with it. Yeah, I think it's so obvious now. I think everybody sees through it. Even on,
I hope so.
No matter which side you're on, I think people are kind of drifting towards the middle. I hope.
Yeah. I just think that the numbers are smaller now. They were huge last time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're still Melissa my wife saw somebody in the store getting the 3-ply masks because they were worried about it. And it's just, but it was one person. So.
Yeah.
Luke, have you seen Stargate?
Stargate.
Well, SG1.
Okay.
The show.
Luke was born when the show came out. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, my buddy has watched Stargate and I've seen some episodes of it, but I haven't. But I know that this is a popular thing because I see Stargate affiliated with ancient civilizations all the time, but I'm not.
They use
up
a
to
lot
speed on it.
of Graham's stuff and quite frankly, Eric Von Daniken stuff. Mostly Eric Von Daniken stuff. I'm starting to watch it. Peer pressure, by the way. And it's all right. It's all right.
By the way, I watched Close Encounters.
And oh God.
Oh, get the nah.
Get him out of here.
Out of here.
Wait, what did he say?
I am tired. It worked. No, it was okay. It was okay. Imagine what he could do now if he made that movie.
I think it's got one of the greatest openings.
I think it's kind of perfect
ever. But you also have to see these things in context in the 70s and early 80s when most everything was. I mean, watching Close Encounters and Star Wars and even Raiders are like watching movies from the future. They were so far ahead of their time. Like when you saw Star Wars, you're like, they don't make anything like this. Like it is weird.
Yeah.
So, well, hello, friends, says Captain
Ridiculous Awesome Sauce.
There you go. Thank you for the $5. And then we get back to this one. Is there a Piri Reis like map for South America? Asks Phoenix on the web for $2.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. Just look up I mean there's so many I couldn't even it's pointless for me to start rattling them off. Just look up 1500s, 1600s, 1700s maps of South America. Those 1500s and 1600s maps are going to be the ones where you're going to see stuff like El Dorado listed and a lot of lost civilizations. And you're going to see like giants and you're going to see people, you're going to see people with their head infused to their chest. You're going to see all kinds of weird crap. And man, South America is just like, man, it is a final frontier. That
Patagonia? Was it Patagonia?
Yeah, it's Patagonia.
Yeah.
It is. And their heads like infused to their chest. Where the hell did somebody see something like that? It was probably somebody with like a deformity, maybe. And that the Spanish saw that and they're like, this is what people here must look like. What else would you think?
They have pictures from the 1800s of they weren't giants. They were just really big people. And they have pictures of some of that. And that might be remnants of something. There's the Paracas people in Peru, with the cranial head deformation, but some of it isn't because they're missing sutures and stuff. It's bizarre.
Oh, yeah. They did like brain surgery. Oh, I should also say, Percy Fawcett, one of his most well-known stories was he says he came across a giant ape-like culture in the middle of the Amazon, and there were people who spoke through like grunts, and they painted their skin like white, like they were
Bone Tomahawk.
Is that kind of
You seen that movie?
No, I haven't seen it, but I know kind of what you're talking about. But they would paint their skin like white, and around their eyes would be black, and they would communicate in like grunting sound, and they hunched over like like giant African apes. And it was the only time in any one of his expeditions that he ever used his gun. It was the only time he ever fired his gun at or near people. And he did it to scare them off. And they were like grunting and he couldn't communicate with them at all. And he said that they lived in like little thatch kind of very primitive huts. And he said that they were probably like well over 6 feet tall and much bigger than he was.
It was all Bigfoot.
So, yeah.
No, I mean,
Hail Luke, I know
get
you're more
disconnected.
focused on Central and South America, but have you heard about the archaeological dig in Casachu? I got that wrong. Casachi National Forest in Louisiana. They found artifacts 13,000 years old.
Yeah, well, I know that there are ancient
Cool.
sites in Louisiana that are like go all the way back to the time of the Younger Dryas, 900 BC, 800, or I'm sorry, 9,000 BC, 8,000 BC, 10,000 BC. But I'm gonna take a photo. If you'll pull that back up, I'm gonna take a photo.
Yeah.
I'll look into that. Unfortunately, there's just so much, man. Like, I could spend my whole career studying Central and South America and just never know it all. You know,
Right? Adam, you gotta ditch out.
Yeah, I've been fighting yawns. I don't know if you guys have. I've been trying not to be rude and just like
Oh,
straight
you're
up
good.
yawn. Luke, it is after 3 a.m. for me, so it's kind of
I was
late
curious
because
about that.
I'm so far ahead. But this has been really
Fantastic.
great. I enjoy your content. I cannot wait to see the stuff that you're planning. That I know that you're planning. I'm very excited, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate that. Where are you based out of?
I'm in Sweden.
So, oh, okay. So that's what you're saying earlier. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, other side of the
Well,
pond.
thanks for staying up to be a part of this, man. I really,
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate that, and thank you for all the kind words. And I hope to be able to come back on at some point and go down
you
these
will.
rabbit holes. Yeah.
Please.
We'll be talking to you a lot. Adam,
Come to Cosmic 24.
yeah, Adam.
I would love to.
24.
Adam.
All right. Jeez, twist my arm.
All right.
Fine. All right, guys. Chat. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
See you next
Stay
week.
safe.
In a couple.
And
weeks.
yeah, we're
That's
we're
right.
hanging out in a
UK,
couple weeks.
baby.
Yeah.
We get to hang out. All right. So just remember, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Get out of here.
Get the fuck out of here. All right.
Wrong.
I'll read some more. And I read that one. All right.
Oh, but North American native sites, they are so old. And this is probably just that Katashi site or whatever he said. It's probably just another example of when European archaeologists who are kind of like antiquarians in the 1800s-ish, like when people are starting to move more west, 1700s even, when people are starting to move more west to get to California, they were asking the natives, they were asking them about these giant mounds. They're like, who built these? And the natives there, whether, what the natives there told them that the gods built them, that they had always been there. So they were that old that they didn't even claim that they built it, So
Right.
that gives you a sense of how old a lot of these places
Yep.
are.
I hope people and animals are all safe from Hillary. This is accidental seller for 59 Norwegian krona. I'm completely safe. I'm not in California where they had an earthquake and a tropical storm, and I'm sure they're all crapping themselves because they're Californians. I'm a former Californian, so I can say that no Californian knows how to drive when water comes from the air. And
Just like Texas.
Yeah, and they act like every new storm is climate change because they have the memory of an ostrich. All right.
Yeah.
I can't help but think the hurricane is nature's way of washing all the Los Angeles poop away. Well, you know what they say when a hurricane
take a
in
lot.
California, it's God flushing the toilet. Okay.
It's gonna take a whole lot.
Soon?
Yeah.
Wash all that
Well,
away.
I also think they live in a world of smog, and they think that the middle of Wisconsin looks like that as well, but it just,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So maybe if you guys all moved out of there and live somewhere with a little bit more nature, you wouldn't have this like skewed perspective of what the rest of the planet is like,
Smog brain.
Smog brain. Smug. Remember that
Yeah.
South Park episode? Smug. That one all time. Oh my God. Is it melodic? Oh, melodic.
Melodic?
Melodic Method has become a member. Cheers. We appreciate you. Thank you.
A new traveler.
A new traveler. Come on a journey with us. Rufio 6789 for $9.99. That is British pounds. That's proper money. What ignited the Big Bang? Life comes from nothing. Hurts my head. Love your show. Can't wait to see you all in London. Big up on FNT and GG. Billions of galaxies equals intelligent life must be out there. Yep.
I think so as well.
Yeah. I definitely believe in an uncreated creator. I think there's a mind behind it all.
Yep.
Me too.
Oh, too many coincidences.
Yeah, for sure.
Very designed, our universe. Yeah. Very designed.
Josh, Kelsey, thank you for the $20. Hail.
Josh.
I read that one. I'm just trying to get through these.
Josh Kelsey's a pimp. He's always dropping in here, just dropping 20. He's not saying nothing.
Yeah, and just like throws
like
it and walks out. Like
he don't need it. He don't need it.
All deaths from Hurricane Hillary will be deemed a suicide, says Eric. This is true.
Eric.
California's about to get Arkancided. Coyote Mall for $10. The book Sea People, Christina Thompson speaks of Polynesian people history, navigating the Pacific Ocean without using long before the Europeans sailed there. Well, yeah, Thor Heyerdahl talked about that. The know, with the reed boats and stuff.
Yeah. There's some evidence that they hit North America. So.
Yeah,
I would believe it completely.
Yeah, yeah.
Forbidden Frontier, one of my favorite shows. Keep up the great work, says Bionic Sasquatch. Thank you. Mug ordered. Nerd Java rules. The future of humanity's past goes through the Central and South America.
Yep.
Church Jack Z for $5. Yeah, it's as Luke said in his talk, which I highly recommend. You can go get it still. Yep. By the way, it's available for purchase on HowTube. About 47 minutes. It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
And you get access. You get access to like the full 16-hour event. Every other speaker as well. If you purchase my speech. So yeah, Cosmic Summit 2023 on HowTube, and you can when you get mine, you get access to everything that happened.
It is the undiscovered country. That's what it is. It's literally the undiscovered country. We know so little about this. So, as much as like Turkey is rocking the world with Göbekli Tepe, I think, and Graham alluded to this in America before and many others. And he's actually, Graham tweeted out that he's back there right now. Mm-hmm. He's down there right now because they're filming.
He's in Brazil.
They're filming Ancient Apocalypse 2. And they're finding out a lot more stuff. And that's, I think that's where the great mysteries lie. And I love that. Luke, have you heard about the 300,000-year-old burial site with inscriptions above it found in Africa? So that's what we were talking about.
Oh, in Spain?
No, it's in South Africa. South Africa. Graham tweeted about a month ago. Unknown Cave of Bones. If you haven't seen that documentary on Netflix, I highly recommend it. It is mind blowing. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so basically, some monkeys, they're not human.
Yeah,
so
they're not human.
A hominid race that was upright but looked more like chimpanzees that have a brain third our size were 250,000 years ago were burying their dead ritualistically with tools in hand and then marking above the graves. And they had a basic, and this is the only place these hominids have been found. I forgot what they were called. And
Nettie?
Yeah, you're close.
Close.
Watch it, Luke. It'll blow your mind.
What's this called again?
It's called Unknown Cave of Bones. It's on Netflix.
Unknown Cave of Bones. Yeah, man, that's a whole like rabbit hole to go down when you're talking about like pre-Homo sapien hominid history. I mean, that's a pretty fascinating
study. And that's another thing where we know dick right now. Rich Uncle Cheapskate for $4.99. My grandmother told me no matter what they tell you in school, the Mayans were black. Okay, I agree.
Critical race theory.
Mel Gibson's film. I was going to bring up Apocalypto. Mel Gibson's film Apocalypto is about exactly that story.
Yeah,
and Apocalypto is freaking awesome.
It's a great movie. You know what's pitiful is I saw it for the first time this summer. After I went home and watched it with my dad after Cosmic Summit. It's really cool, and the way things look is very accurate. But what's not accurate at all is you remember when he's about to be when he's got to run through like the ball court area and they're shooting the arrows in the sky, and then he goes to like the big like giant grave thing, and then he ends up in the jungle, and then he ends up. He ends up in the jungle, finds his wife and his kid, and then ends up on the coast where the Spanish arrive. That is literally from Mexico City all the way to Cozumel.
Yeah,
Good
it's
runner.
like-
Okay.
he run real fast.
I mean, in a matter of one night, he ran all the way across the continent.
There we go. After winning your coffee mug, channeling Sheldon Cooper, I now possess the DNA of Nerdrotic. You will. Great, great dusting discussion topic. Did he say fucking?
That's probably what he meant to say.
Yeah. Definitely bring Luke back. Oh, we are, Mark.
Oh, absolutely.
And congratulations. Congratulations. Mark, thank you for the $20. Glad you went.
I was ready to I was going to ask you some more questions about you, but like, how did you get into this? Why did you want to get into this?
Oh, yeah, we didn't even get to that. So we'll have to.
That's interview too when you come back.
Bring you back. We'll just bring you back.
Yeah, Gary and I talked about that a lot at dinner the other day.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
Luke, don't revise history to put the discovery of germ theory hundreds of years before it happened. Smallpox blankets are a hoax.
I don't believe I don't think they knew about germ theory, but they did know that people got sick when they could pass something. They knew there was something that was happening. So I think that's the argument.
And germ theory was something that China was using. Okay, if you're talking about like weaponizing disease, which could be considered chemical warfare or whatever you want to call it, but that's been done thousands of years.
Like they knew something was happening, but they didn't know the specific mechanics of it.
New shit.
They still could use it.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been hard to figure out that like there were thousands of people interacting, and I don't think it was very hard for people to figure out that when you were exposed to somebody else's belongings, that it would get you sick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they were able to figure out sacred geometry, and that the size of people at that time were able to figure out that like the way a flower grows is a sacred geometrical shape, and they built their homes to it so that it would align with the constellations. I mean, people have always been as smart as they are. I think they definitely were able to figure out that I take this person's stuff, I get sick.
Yeah.
Right. Plague doctors, that's a good point.
Well,
Plague doctors, they knew there was something that was
mind,
connecting. They just didn't know how.
I'll go over the book someday.
Yeah.
Book I read that basically talks extensively about a lot of our shit is rediscovered. A lot of our stuff is rediscovered.
Yeah.
Let's go to this one, but thank you for the super chat.
Yeah.
You know what? The reason I think it pisses people off, and I think it's a good reason, is there's so much colonist. You're
anti-colonization. Yeah.
It's like
they use it as a weapon against white people. That's basically what it is. And it's really annoying.
Basically, that tries to, dismiss civilization and just not really look at the big picture going, he just went over that. Like the Aztecs were fucking killing the shit out of people. The reason we were able, the reason the English and so many other European nations were able to come over here in ships with like 100 people or 200 people and conquer thousands and thousands of people is because they were fighting with each other for so long.
Yeah, they were so wicked that all the tribes around the Aztecs wanted to see the Aztecs fall, and they worked with the Spanish against them, and then smallpox killed off all those guys too. So and I see that a lot. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I do see it with people who are from Mexico. So Spanish and Mexica cultures come together and make Mexicans. And they have they resent like white Europeans. And I'm thinking the Spanish are white Europeans. Those are the first white Europeans that got here. And they eviscerated all of the indigenous people, all of them. But it's just like in the Aztecs were doing the same thing. And so were all of the indigenous people in North America.
Yeah.
And people, it's just completely illogical to think that like one civilization is just and all the other ones are evil. They all do evil crap and conquer each other. And the normal people are just normal people. It's all your kings and rulers,
all the rich,
almost like it's always the same.
It's always those people north of Richmond or north of London. Or
or
Atlanta.
It's almost like the people back then were the people now, and the people before that, and the people going to be in the future. Yeah. We're all humans that act the same way and have the same tendencies.
I got to get through these. Sorry.
Thanks for cutting me off.
$20. I'm going to cut your ass off because I got, you know what? Because you need to edit.
Oh, I think you read
That's
this
true.
One.
I do.
We wonder why the lost civilizations were clear indications of purges of fact and knowledge every few generations. Oh, I read this one. You were just going to let me do that.
You just cut me right off. God dang, dude. You cut me off for something you read already.
I would say if I was sorry, Garrett. Which I'm not.
Fine.
All right. I'm like losing it here. So Adam Young for $20 says, "Hail all, Gary, I just saw Talk to Me. Have you seen it and can you speak about it?" I have not seen it. Chris Gore has seen it. He could talk about it. It's an allergy. It's an allegory. Why did I say allergy? It's an allegory for addiction wrapped in the veneer of possession. I would recommend it, and I would love your take. I'll go check. I'll check it out. A lot of people told me to check it out.
I've heard good things.
Hayden 75 for $20. Luke, thank you for coming on the show. By the way, hail Hayden. Hail Hayden. Luke, thank you all for coming on the show. We love having you as a guest. I'm not alone in wishing the show was longer. Please come back soon and often. This is a place to go down those rabbit holes. We love this stuff. We absolutely do.
Oh, thank you very much. It's like really hard to comprehend that I'm hearing that, because, you know, when I was in late high school and college, I sat down and listened to YouTube videos that are like this episode, and you know, Graham and Randall and Ben from Uncharted X, even Jimmy from Bright Insight, all these guys. I was listening to all their videos, like dreaming to be able to have a life where I could do that. And now that I'm here talking to you guys, and hearing that, it's really hard to comprehend. I'm really, really grateful, you know, that people are interested in this. So thank you.
Love that energy, man.
You're good.
Go subscribe. I want to see more videos. I want you to make videos on all these things that you have invested. Like you have a great way of presenting information. Like I was saying when you left, I was like, you have a great way of presenting that, where you say, look, here's a spot. Here's the area around that spot. It's a lot larger. There's a lot of potential there. And then you zoom out even further. I want to see way more videos from your channel. I'm not telling
Cosmic Summit how to do their thing or any of these contact in the desert, but I'm going to go ahead and tell them how to do their thing. You know, many of these lectures over time made their way to YouTube, where anybody can click them and they're not behind a paywall. And that's what's created this fear, is those damn lectures. And like, I watch lectures that are like 15 years old. I don't care. So I think you got to pay for things, you got to pay for summits, but I think there's a point where you either give it back to the person of the lecture, or you work out a deal. You don't have to pay anything on this, Luke, because you had a deal. But you work out a deal where you could just throw that on YouTube somehow and get it out there so more people can see it. Because it would that would certainly help. As Garrett said, a lot of us, and I'm speaking for the chat too, because I know you guys do it too, put on those lectures while we're doing stuff, while we're going to sleep, and we go back to the same lecture and over again. And it really is like Mahler talked about this, but I'm sure it's the same for you or anybody else. There's a lecture and you'll see like a little spike in your viewership at, you know, say an American around midnight, around 10 o'clock. He sees a lot of spike because people put Mahler on to go to sleep. And that's a huge fear.
Yeah.
And that's what got me that kept me into this, you know, and it's because we all listen to art. So many of us listen to art at night. So we were primed for 10 PM, time to get a little weird, time to get time for some knowledge.
Yeah.
And I
Ancient history ASMR.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was his first super chat too. Sorry, I was reading that. So thank you for the welcome. We got a few more, then we're out. Okay. JB has been a member for 5 months. Hail to the travelers. Hail to you. Paul Ralu, welcome to the Traveler. I am functionally retarded, so I have hard times. Even though my last name is hard, I can't, unless it's Smith, I can't pronounce it. WG has gifted 5 Nerdrotic memberships. Hail WG. Accidental seller for 59 Norwegian krona. I hope people, I read this one. Three Birth Thunder. Three Birth Thunder for $9.99 says, trying to find an ancient tools is like going to the Empire State Building and trying to find a worker's $300 impact wrench. This is true. We talked about that with Ben Ben brought this up that all the tools they found over all of ancient Egypt could fit into a room, a decent sized room, but a room.
Yeah,
thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
And we know 100% how they built the pyramids.
Oh, totally. It was guys
Figured
with
it out.
long claws and bare feet with like pulleys and rope and bronze tools. Totally.
Chiseled them off.
What I think is crazy is in the diorite quarries, they say that diorite, you're talking about like the hardest of the hard, like almost bashing against diamond. And you're supposed to be hitting that with a rock with your hands. And then it's supposed to turn into this massive structure that's like perfectly engineered and perfectly put together. And you're doing that by going ding, ding, ding.
Right. Some of them upright. They're hitting it up.
Yeah.
What did Graham say?
Can you imagine that
about
kind of strength?
Forgive me if I get this wrong. There's granite inside the pyramid. The pyramid, the casing stones are mostly limestone. Well, the ones that are left, not the casing stones, but the stones around it are limestone. But there's granite inside, and it's also 300 feet up. I believe he said it was 700 tons. Maybe it's 70 tons. Can't remember. But he said, well, you had to build a ramp to put that up there. Well, it would have been a ramp about a quarter mile long.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the problem with that is, so these red granite casing stones that are in the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, so they come from 500 miles away from Aswan.
Yes.
And so they weigh anywhere from 20 to 84 tons a piece. So not 700 tons. That's getting into
tons.
like the Bellbeck. Yeah, that's getting into like the Bellbeck stones, if you know what those are.
Yeah.
And then so there's a roof that's on top of it, and the columns that are on the roof are the heaviest of all of those red granite stones. Okay, so those are the heaviest. Not only that, there are 5 antechambers made out of rose granite of the same heft of columns above the King's Chamber. It's just
from the same place.
All from Aswan. It's never been proven how they transported them on boats. They say it was like all perfectly balanced, and I'm like the greatest thing that the Ministry of Antiquities could do in Egypt is recreate that. Put the boat on the harbor, create an old-fashioned like wooden deck, and then move those 80-ton. I mean, people don't think about this.
Just do one.
How did the 80
tons first? Let's see if you can even do that.
Yeah.
You know?
How did the 20-ton block? How did it not fall through a wooden deck that was on the side? You know what I mean? People don't think about that because they had to balance it, or they had to slide it over and get it perfectly onto the ship. How did the first block not sink the ship?
Yeah.
You know?
At least one.
Yeah.
Right? You'd think at least one would have fallen through. Something might accidentally fallen into
or the boats could have been on the ground already, but I would love to see them try it.
Suspect. It's very suspect.
And then the ramp would have to be bigger and more structurally sound than the pyramid itself.
Yep. Yes, it would. Sand wouldn't really do that, I believe Graham said. Okay, so I'm going to get through the donations real quick. Hail Earthlings. Sorry, this is Zorbu. Has
Zorbu
for $25. Hail Earthlings. Tonight, I'd like to answer a question we aliens get all the time. Yes, you were genetically engineered by us. And also, we made female feet shorter than male feet so women could stand closer to the kitchen appliances.
Dang, Zorbu. Messed up, Zorbu.
It's official. That Forbidden Frontier intro is so good, and Mahler does great oral, says Aberjam for $3. I'll pass that on.
How would you know?
Yeah. El Dorado for $10 says, how was Barnes & Noble? Did you have any Arrow videos, or did you pick up Dazed and Confused on 4K? I did not pick up Dazed and Confused on 4K. You know what? I don't like the movie that much. It's fine. It's not my generation though. It's like more like my big sister's generation.
What do you think of our Barnes & Noble?
The one I went to, there's the one at La Cantera.
Yeah, that one sucks.
The
history selection is awful.
Compared to Southern California Barnes & Noble, it's pretty good.
Is it
pretty
really?
good.
Wow.
But the other one I went to, which is the one you're talking about, is in a shopping center near. I don't know where I still don't know where the fuck I'm going in this one. To be honest,
Still a
with
I have to
mystery.
GPS. I have to GPS everything since
it's next to Dick's Sporting Goods, I believe. Was great.
Oh, yeah. I've been there.
It was fucking packed. I haven't seen a Barnes and Noble like that in 20 years. There was a line. They were calling for help. I did get some Arrow videos. I went a little nuts. Okay. I bought a stack of Blu-rays like that. So I got Apocalypse Now in 4K, which I hadn't gotten. I'm like, shit, how did I miss that? So, and a Conan book.
Oh, nice.
The Arrow stuff I got was Fisher King 4K. Got a Fisher King 4K. Also got the Babylon 5 animated show on Blu-ray. So,
Adam, I'll put you in timeout.
Right.
Stop talking crap on Close Encounters, man.
I'm watching old Magnum PI right now. Tom Selleck.
Hell yeah.
Oh, nice.
Dude.
Yeah, I'm all
man.
into old. Like I say it's old. I don't mean,
It's fucking old. It's okay.
It's old
Yeah,
at this, yeah.
But damn, it's a great show.
It's a great show. So you know what you need to watch after that is a show called Simon and Simon, because it came on right after it. And
I've heard of that, but
it's a detective show. It's got a great theme song. Takes place in San Diego. So
yeah, I love Starsky and Hutch, the original one.
that was great too.
Yeah.
All right, last super chat. Nate the Great for $5. Off topic. I picked up some Batman Year One by Frank Miller. As it was, is it any good? Also, yes. Also picked up Watchmen, but I know that this one is good even if I'm a filthy normie. Yeah, both of them are good. You're very well off, Nate the Great. Don't
Get
worry.
this one.
What was that?
This one is the last one that came up on chat.
What's that?
Johan Naxus. for
Randall and
$20.
Graham on Rogan got me into the study of the late Pleistocene. Forbidden Frontier got me further down the rabbit hole with tons of stuff. And now I need to go down the rabbit hole with Luke. Darn you, Gary. Love you guys. Johan Knoxos, thank you for the $20. Cheers.
You know what?
All right. There's one more on the Streamlabs side, which is Brown Coat Bespoke. Brown Coat Bespoke. I cannot read today. For $20, says after winning your coffee mug and channeling. All right. You did a super chat of this one too. I might as well read it.
Double it up.
It's the DNA of Nerdrotic. Great discussing topic. Definitely bring this guy back. I don't know if I read that one twice.
Thank
because
you.
it was on super chats, but we're bringing Luke back.
Absolutely.
Luke's
Thank
a homie. That matters.
Yep.
It does.
Yep. We're
All right.
both San Antonians, so guys stick together.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's wrap this thing up, and we'll start with you, Garrett. What do you got coming up?
I've got videos that we're going to be making for our channel, the Nerdrotic channel.
Yeah, I got to start recording it tonight.
That's right. So we're going to be working on that. And also Based AF Mondays tomorrow on Adam's channel, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Normal World on Normal World's channel.
That's right.
Watch it. It's fun.
Excellent. Luke,
Yeah,
what do you have coming up?
I am working on 2 new videos. So I think what people want, so all the stuff, and I think we were talking about this at dinner, all the stuff I've been talking about, I don't feel like I have some videos, like if anybody's watching right now, check out my video. I made it a few months ago. It's it's like the most obvious proof of ancient lost technology, the Baalbek stones. That is like an in-depth study of lost technology, and I think that's what I'm going to stick to. I've made some small videos since then, but I just don't think that that's what my audience wants, and that's tough to kind of identify because I make short form content on social media. So what do you do on YouTube? But I think that long in-depth studies is really what people want, like lecture style material. So my next 2 are the lost knowledge and new discoveries related to the Olmecs. That's going to be coming out in this video. Then the week after that it's going to be a study of whether or not the site of Tiwanaku is the real El Dorado. And it's that those are both going to be 2 in-depth studies that are going to come out in the next couple of weeks. And I think those lecture style videos that are a bit longer and a bit more conversational is because in some of my videos I'm real formal, but I'm starting to relax on camera and be more comfortable. And I think that's what people want from me.
That comes in time. the comfort level that's normal for everybody.
Mhm.
Like it just is. And once you get more relaxed, it gets better. But your stuff is evergreen, so it's always going to do well. Once we kind of shifted to evergreen on my channel, evergreen-ish. I'll say that. It's nice. Like you go back and see a video from 2 years ago, like it's still doing well. Like
It's still relevant.
So your stuff will do way better.
Yeah.
It's always going to kind of, don't look for like those.
I don't know. Nerdrotic is killing it in views. I mean,
we're doing okay.
Yeah, y'all are doing damn good. I think my last YouTube video has like, about 270 views.
But that's you know what? So, what you're gonna have is like that video will lead into other ones, and you're gonna have one that might not hit the peak in the first 48 hours or whatever. But then you go check back a year later, and you're like, "Well, how did I get 1 million views on that?" Like that. That's the kind of stuff you guys do.
Yeah.
Like Randall, does this. I love that Randall does the full podcast and then does his clips and stuff. That really keeps it consistent. So you do the same thing.
I'm actually in the next year or so, I'm gonna have dinner with Randall, which is crazy, and we're gonna talk about the Popol Vuh, which is like the Maya origin story and sacred geometry involved in that. And he has been studying that, like he hasn't talked about it much, but he's been looking into Younger Dryas Ice Age of Central America and wants to kind of talk to me about it and get my point of view, and I don't know, maybe hand off some info to me for me to look into, which is just like mind blowing.
Brilliant.
He said something to me. This is the last thing I'll say, but he said something to me. We were in the hallway at Cosmic Summit, which, by the way, come to Cosmic 24.
Yes,
and
I'll be there.
So I was walking through a hallway with him. This is probably like one of the coolest moments I've had in this whole journey of like trying to make a living doing and talking about what I love. And I was in the hallway. I was in this like one of these back halls with him after we got out of the lobby. And, of course, he's getting mobbed by people while we're there. And I like walked up to him, and we were going to the same place. We're going to the event center. And I walk up to him, and he recognized me as soon as he's like, Luke. And I shook his hand and everything. It was good to meet him or whatever. And we get into this back like private hall headed to the event center. And I'm like, I said something to him along the lines of, have you ever gotten used to getting mobbed like that whenever you go somewhere? And he said something to the effect of, he's like, yeah, I've gotten used to it. And he's like, and you will too here pretty soon. He was like, but it's going to be even more. And that was the very first time I ever spoke to him. And that was the very first thing he ever said to me. And I don't mean it in like a way of tooting my own horn. It was just like hard to believe that this guy said that to me the very first time I ever met him, and that he already knew who I was. And I had been watching him on Joe Rogan for like 10 years, and it's just, I don't know. Life is really,
and God, it has been a decade since this stuff is really like reignited and built back up through Joe and his talks with Randall and Graham. Like this all comes from that, which all comes from art, which all comes from Eric Von Daniken and Velikovsky, and it just goes all the way back.
Yeah.
It's good that this is happening again. I think it's
absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think it's reached the point yet where it's like exploded. I think it's getting really close, but I think in the next few years it's going to literally explode and everyone's going to be into it.
Graham's show leveled it up. And I think when it comes back, because it legit did good on Netflix, like they re-upped him like pretty quick. So and it's cheap to make and it's unscripted, so you can kind of make that stuff right now. And it's good during a strike. So I think if Graham does something, if Randall does something, I would love for Randall to do a documentary.
Yeah, I can't believe Randall doesn't have a book.
Yeah,
I mean that blows.
Or a documentary like that.
Yeah.
Luke,
too busy.
We need to get you on Joe Rogan. I think that's the next.
Yeah. Oh, I think that'll happen.
He needs to get you on the show.
I am going on. Do y'all know the Concrete podcast?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm meeting up with Daniel Jones in a couple weeks, and he's flying me out to Tampa.
I think that'll be a stepping stone.
Yeah.
I think Joe Rogan will be next.
I don't know. I want to do all my expeditions before I go talk to Joe. Like I want to have done something. I want to have been like, dude, I got bit by a snake and my toes had turned black and my toes were falling off, and like, look, I have no toes anymore, you know, and like something crazy to be able to say on there, you know.
Did you do ayahuasca down there? Did you go? Man. Did you go with the shaman and do the ayahuasca? Meet the machine elves.
I would do it. I would definitely do it.
As a sober guy, I would do it like later in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, for sure. My wife would have to be there though. I don't like take over the world.
Set and setting, it's all part of it.
I would try. See, I would try to take over the world, but I'd be naked and puking on myself, and then I'd get arrested.
Be cuckoo con, be like, ooh.
We're gonna wrap it up. Thank you, Lady Gravemaster, who was back there.
Thank you.
Coordinating everything, and because X-Ray Girl has abandoned us.
I think she's on a plane right now.
Whatever. She just leaves. Whatever. We got Lady Gravemaster. What's good?
She's been here the whole time.
She's a Marine. Semper Fi.
Well, hey, thank you guys so much for having me on.
Hey, thanks, Luke.
Really
absolutely, man.
Great hanging out with you at dinner. Let's do it again. It was great hanging out with the show. The folks seem to really like you, so we're gonna have you back as soon as you're ready. And we will see everybody. I don't. What's our next show about?
I don't know if we have it completely planned yet. I know we have a bunch of different options.
Drinker said he'd jump on for our Dyatlov Pass show if we ever do that. So
heck yeah, because his book is about that.
Yep. So, but I kind of want to stay in ancient civilizations. I want to stay with like kind of what Luke has planted. So we'll figure it out. I have no idea.
We have a big list of stuff that we could always go into. But
again, Luke Caverns, links in the description.
Subscribe.
Join me in my tour, Lost Cities of the Maya in the Yucatan, March 17th through the 23rd. I'm going with NEXT, Chichen Itza, Uxmal, Skitchmook, Labna, Ekbalam, blah, 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 blah. You guys should definitely come with me. It's a spring break trip you're not going to want to miss. There's going to be a couple surprise sites in there that we haven't announced. I'm really looking forward to it. This is my first ever public tour that I'm offering up for people to travel with me. And it's not going to be just like your normal tourist tour. It's going to be very in-depth, a completely packed like 7 or 8 day itinerary.
Awesome.
So
links in the description. Until next time, everyone.
Yes. Thank you all again.
Thank you.
Nerdrotic.com.
Welcome, travelers, to the fringes of reality, where the strange and mysterious meet, and the thin veil between fact and fiction is torn. Welcome to the Forbidden Frontier.